Hey guys! Imagine a secret order so powerful that even kings feared them, so wealthy that they could control kingdoms, and so mysterious that centuries later people are still hunting for their treasure. They were called the Knights Templar, warrior monks who protected pilgrims, mastered secret codes, and ran the first banking system the world had ever seen. But here's the shocking part. The very rulers who relied on them suddenly turned against them. In one terrifying day, these legendary knights were arrested, tortured, and their enormous wealth vanished, some say forever. And if that wasn't enough, whispers of a deadly curse began to spread. Kings and popes would fall mysteriously, armies would tremble, and secrets would vanish into the shadows. Tonight, we're diving deep into their story, from their humble beginnings as protectors of pilgrims to their rise as the most feared and wealthy organization of the medieval world, and the shocking betrayal that shook Europe to its core. And yes, we'll explore the hidden treasures, unsolved mysteries, and the legendary curse that has haunted generations. Every moment is filled with danger, cunning, and secrets you won't believe actually existed. Stick around because by the end of this journey, the story of the Knights Templar will change the way you see history forever.
The year is 1119. The Holy Land is quiet, for now. The wars of the First Crusade have ended, leaving behind a strange and uneasy peace. Jerusalem, newly conquered by Christian knights, stands under the blazing sun, its walls scarred, its streets filled with both pilgrims and fear. You can almost feel the dust beneath your feet as you walk those narrow roads. The scent of incense drifts from the churches, mixing with the smell of the desert wind. Bells toll in the distance. Every day, pilgrims from Europe arrive here, weary travelers who have crossed oceans and deserts to reach the city where Christ once walked. Some come barefoot, their robes torn by the long journey. They kneel at the Holy Sepulchre and weep, not from sorrow, but from awe. But beyond the city gates, danger waits. The roads between Jerusalem and the coastal ports are ruled by bandits and raiders. Many pilgrims who leave the city never return. The desert swallows them whole. And so, one quiet evening, a small group of knights gathers in the courtyard of the Temple Mount, the ancient site once believed to hold the Temple of Solomon. Their armor is plain, their faces young but hardened.
At their head stands Hugues de Payens, a French nobleman of steady gaze and quiet faith. He looks at his companions, only 8 of them, and says softly, "If no one will guard the road, then we will. No wealth, no glory, only a vow to protect pilgrims on their journey, even if it costs them their lives. They have no fortress, no army, no banner. But they have something greater, purpose. The King of Jerusalem, Baldwin II, grants them a place to live, a small quarter within the Temple Mount itself. The ancient stones seem to hum with forgotten history. Beneath their feet, legend says, lie the ruins of Solomon's Temple, the house of God. And from this sacred ground, a new order is born. They call themselves the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. Later, the world would simply call them the Knights Templar. At first, people laugh at them. 9 men swearing to protect thousands of pilgrims? It sounds impossible. But the Templars do not laugh. They ride out, day after day, into the desert. 2 knights sharing a single horse, their white cloaks plain and unadorned.
When they find the bodies of pilgrims lying by the roadside, they bury them with prayers. When they meet raiders, they fight without hesitation. Their courage becomes known quickly, whispered by travelers who survive because of them. At night, when they return to their quarters, they eat in silence, bread, a little wine,
nothing more. They take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. They sleep on straw. Their lives are a rhythm of prayer and patrol, of faith and battle. And yet, in the quiet hours, when the desert wind passes through the arches of the Temple Mount, you can almost imagine what they dreamed of, a world where faith and courage could walk side by side without fear. Years pass. Their reputation grows. More knights arrive from Europe, drawn by the stories of these warrior monks who live like saints and fight like lions. But the Templars still have no official recognition. The Church watches them with curiosity and some suspicion. Warrior monks? The idea seems strange, even dangerous. Then, in 1129, everything changes. Hugues de Payens travels to Troyes, France, to speak before a great council of the Church. The hall is filled with bishops, nobles, and clerics. They listen as he describes his brotherhood, men who wear the sword but serve God, who kill not for gold but to protect the helpless. The council falls silent, and then, to the surprise of many, the Church approves their rule. Their vows are blessed, their mission sanctified. The Templars become the first officially recognized military order of the Church, a strange and powerful union of monk and soldier, prayer and sword. When Hugues returns to the Holy Land, the news spreads like fire. The small brotherhood that once shared bread in silence is now an order that spans kingdoms. Knights from across Europe take the vow. Lords donate land, money, and horses. And on their white mantles, the Templars now bear a new symbol, a red cross stitched over the heart. The red of sacrifice, the cross of faith. Simple, but unforgettable. From that moment, everything changes. The pilgrim roads are no longer silent. The sight of the red cross brings hope. Bandits flee. Travelers begin to feel safe again. The legend of the Templars grows. And as the sun sets over Jerusalem, painting the city gold, the knights gather in the courtyard for evening prayer. The air is still. The world is quiet. Hugues de Payens raises his head toward the darkening sky. He knows the road ahead will not be easy. He knows that faith, like steel, must be tested by fire. But tonight, for the first time, he feels the weight of destiny settle gently on his shoulders. The Templars have begun their long march through history, and though they do not yet know it, their story will end both in glory and fire. The desert wind sighs softly through the arches of the Temple Mount and whispers the beginning of a legend that will never die.
The morning sun spreads gold across the walls of Jerusalem. The city hums softly with the footsteps of pilgrims, merchants, and monks. But within the quiet courtyard of the Temple Mount, another rhythm beats, one of discipline, devotion, and silent strength. The Knights Templar rise early, not to seek glory, but to honor a sacred routine. Their mornings begin with prayer. Each knight kneels on straw, hands folded, eyes closed. The chants of the psalms fill the stone halls, echoing like a river over cold stones. The wind carries the sound beyond the walls, blending with the distant tolling of bells from the churches and the soft murmur of the city streets. After prayer comes training. Even the youngest recruits wield the sword with careful precision, guided by older brothers who have faced battle and survived. Steel rings against steel as lessons are repeated endlessly. A knight learns not only to strike, but to anticipate, to protect, and to endure. Strength without restraint
is meaningless. Courage without faith is hollow. Meals are simple. Bread baked in small ovens, a few vegetables, a little wine. The knights eat in silence, save for a soft reading from scripture, with the voice of a brother recounting a story of a distant battle or holy pilgrimage. They take only what they need. Their vow of poverty is strict. Any excess is given to the poor or travelers in need. Their white mantles, plain yet unbroken, are more than a uniform. They are a symbol of devotion. The red cross stitched over the heart is a reminder that their life belongs not to themselves, but to God and to the weak they protect. The knights walk the streets of Jerusalem with humility, yet with the quiet confidence of men who know their purpose.
And purpose is everything. It is purpose that drives them out of the safety of the Temple Mount to patrol the dangerous roads beyond the city walls. The desert, harsh and unyielding, tests them daily. Bandits, raiders, and political enemies lurk behind every dune and in every pass. A Templar never strikes for greed. Every fight is defensive, every life taken weighed against the cost to the innocent. Nightfall is another trial. The knights gather again for prayer, for reflection, for silence. The desert sky is vast and full of stars, each one a distant reminder of God's eternity. Sometimes a young squire will ask an elder, "Why do we do this, even when it seems the world does not notice?" And the reply is always the same. Because the world is never ready to see the good it does not understand. But we serve not for praise, only for truth. The Templar Mount becomes more than a home. It is a fortress, a school, and a sanctuary. Within its walls, the Templars write the first rules of their order. The Latin rule dictates every detail: how to pray, how to dress, how to train, how to eat, how to treat fellow brothers and strangers alike. Even in sleep, discipline guides their lives. The rule forbids pride. It demands humility. It binds a knight to his brothers and to God. To break the rule is to break faith itself. And yet, the rule is not cruel. It teaches honor, respect, and loyalty. In this way, the knights are stronger than most armies, not merely in swordsmanship, but in spirit.
Visitors begin to notice the difference. Pilgrims feel safer traveling under the protection of the knights. Stories spread of small bands of Templars confronting armed raiders and guiding travelers through deserts where none dared to tread. Tales grow of a white-cloaked knight appearing as if from nowhere to rescue the lost, a figure who moves as silently as the wind, strikes as swiftly as a falcon, and vanishes again, leaving only the memory of hope. Word spreads back to Europe. Nobles, kings, and clergy hear of this strange brotherhood, men who were monks and soldiers, who live without wealth yet command respect, who die for strangers as easily as for their own brothers. Some are inspired, some are suspicious, but the Templars continue, unchanged by gossip or praise. Training evolves too. The knights study maps, learning the terrain of Palestine and the Holy Land. They learn to read the stars for navigation. They master horseback riding so well that a single Templar can cover dozens of miles in a day, often arriving to protect a group of pilgrims before danger can even reach them. Their discipline becomes legendary. Even in the face of danger, they do not falter. One night, a small patrol of Templars is attacked by a band of raiders. Outnumbered, they form a defensive circle, their swords shining in torchlight. Not a single pilgrim is harmed, and the raiders flee before the dawn.
These moments, though small, weave the legend that will one day stretch across continents. And through it all, the Templars remember humility. They remember prayer. They remember purpose. Wealth, power, and fame mean nothing. Only service and faith endure.
By the end of the first decade, the Templars are no longer 9 men on a dusty road. They are a brotherhood, strong in number, stronger in spirit. They have fortified positions across the Holy Land, their white mantles with red crosses seen by every pilgrim and feared by every raider. Hugues de Payan, sitting quietly in the temple courtyard, watches the sun set over the city. He sees young knights training, novices learning to pray, and seasoned warriors patrolling the roads. His heart swells with quiet pride, not for himself, but for the order he helped forge. He knows the world will test them, as it always tests those who serve a higher purpose. He knows that one day the Templars will be challenged by kings, by greed, and by betrayal. But that day is not now. Tonight, there is peace. Tonight, Jerusalem sleeps under the stars. And within the temple walls, the Knights Templar pray, train, and live their sacred mission, silently shaping a legend that will echo for centuries. The desert wind sighs, carrying the chants of the monks across the city. The stars shine above, constant and eternal. And you, listening in the quiet of your room, feel the calm certainty of a brotherhood forged in purpose, guided by faith, and destined to leave a mark on history that no king, no pope, and no fire can ever erase.
The sun rises over the hills of the Holy Land, painting the stone walls of Jerusalem in pale gold. The city is quiet now, but beyond the gates, the world is restless. The roads are dangerous, the deserts vast, and the threats never cease. For the Knights Templar, this is the hour that defines them, not in prayer alone, but in action. The first raids come before dawn. Bandits, mercenaries, and rival forces strike travelers along the narrow roads from Jaffa to Jerusalem. They are swift, cruel, and desperate. But the Templars are swifter. Mounted on strong horses, armored in white cloaks with the red cross stitched over their hearts, they ride silently through the desert dawn, their swords gleaming like rays of sunlight on steel. Even a handful of Templars can stop an ambush. They move as one, a disciplined unit, trained not only in swordsmanship, but in strategy, in anticipation, in survival. Each man knows the other's movements instinctively, the result of endless hours of practice, prayer, and ritual. A small band can protect dozens of pilgrims. A dozen can scatter an enemy force. The Templars are not reckless. They do not fight for glory or wealth. Every strike is measured, every maneuver calculated. Their lives are bound to a sacred code, to protect the innocent, to defend the faith, and to endure. And because of this, they are feared by those who prey upon the weak. One night, a young knight named Herman rides ahead of a small convoy of pilgrims. The moon hangs low and full, casting shadows across the desert sands. Herman senses movement. From the darkness, a band of raiders emerges, swords raised, eyes wild with greed.
Herman does not panic. He signals with a silent hand. The rest of the knights fall into formation. The Templars move like shadows, cutting off the enemy's advance. Horses rear and neigh. The clash of steel is sharp and bright in the moonlight. A single Templar, riding in a circle, can hold back 5 men. The pilgrims watch in awe, some crossing themselves,
some whispering prayers of thanks.
Even in the heat of battle, prayer is constant. Knights pause to cross themselves before engaging, whispering words that carry them through danger. Every sword swing, every charge, every maneuver is guided not just by training, but by faith. Their actions are sacred, not merely martial. Back in their quarters, after a day of combat, the Templars do not celebrate victory with feasts or song. They kneel in silence. They pray for those they have killed, for their own souls, and for the souls of those they could not save. The desert night wraps around them like a protective cloak. In this stillness, they remember their vow to serve God and protect the helpless. As the order grows, their reputation spreads across Europe and the Holy Land. Kings and nobles begin to send sons, wealth, and supplies to join or support them. Their mastery of combat, logistics, and strategy makes them indispensable to Christian armies. And yet, their loyalty is not to any king, but to the Church and their sacred mission. You can almost see them riding through the narrow passes of Palestine, their white mantles bright against the golden sands, red crosses glinting in the sun. A squadron here, a pair of knights there, always vigilant, always ready. Their presence brings hope to the pilgrims and fear to the raiders, a living symbol of protection and divine authority. And yet, even as they rise in fame and influence, there is humility in every action. The Templars know that pride is dangerous, that courage without discipline leads to ruin. Each battle, each skirmish is a lesson in restraint, honor, and faith. By the end of this decade, the Knights Templar have become more than warriors. They are protectors, scholars, and diplomats. They train, they fight, they pray, they govern. Their presence changes the very landscape of the Holy Land. Roads are safer, pilgrimages possible, and cities more secure. The desert wind whispers across the hills, the white mantles shine in the sunset, and in this moment, the Templars are not just soldiers or monks. They are the embodiment of a new kind of order, one that blends faith and strength, prayer and steel, courage and discipline. Uge Stepans, now older, walks through the courtyard, watching his knights train. The sun sets behind him, painting the Temple Mount in soft gold. He sees young squires learning to pray, to ride, to fight, to endure. He sees veterans standing quietly, watching, teaching, guiding. And he knows the road ahead will not be easy. Wars will rage, kingdoms will challenge them, and betrayal will come. But tonight, as the desert sky darkens and stars begin to shine, the order is strong, their purpose is clear, and their legend, like the desert wind, is only beginning to spread.
The sun rises slowly over the rocky hills of the Holy Land, casting long shadows across the fortified walls of the newly constructed Templar strongholds. From above, the fortresses appear almost untouched by time. Massive stone walls, towers reaching toward the sky, and courtyards quiet except for the distant clatter of training swords. These fortresses are not built merely for defense. They are symbols of authority, order, and sanctity. Every stone is laid with purpose, every gate and turret designed to protect the pilgrims and serve as a bastion of the faith. Inside, the air smells of fresh-cut wood, oiled armor, and the faint scent of incense lingering from morning prayers. Knights move like shadows through narrow corridors, their white mantles rustling softly, their red crosses gleaming. Here, in the heart of their stronghold, the Templars are more than warriors. They are guardians of knowledge, strategy, and sacred secrets. Hugues de Paynes walks through the inner courtyard, observing the activity. Young squires carry water, polish armor, and study maps spread across wooden tables. Some are learning the art of siegecraft, how to construct ladders, manage catapults, and fortify walls. Others are immersed in reading, poring over scrolls and manuscripts copied by Templar scribes. The Templars understand that power is not only in the sword. Knowledge, precision, and strategy are equally essential. They document maps of the Holy Land with incredible detail. Deserts, mountain passes, river crossings, and hidden paths. These maps guide pilgrims safely to Jerusalem and allow Templar forces to navigate even the most treacherous terrain.
Even more remarkable is their understanding of finance and logistics. The Templars developed systems to fund their operations, store supplies, and manage provisions across scattered strongholds. They are the first to combine military discipline with organizational genius. A fortress is more than a castle. It is a living network, a hub of resources, intelligence, and strategy. In the quiet halls of the fortress, a young knight named Arnaud studies ancient manuscripts with a senior Templar. They are not just learning theology or Latin, they are decoding histories, engineering texts, and practical guides to survival. Every piece of knowledge, every strategy, every lesson is treated as sacred. Even their architectural designs hold secrets. Many fortresses contain hidden chambers, concealed staircases, and underground tunnels. Some say these passages lead to hidden caches of treasure, while others claim they were built to protect sacred relics. But the greatest secret of all is not gold, nor silver, nor even hidden passages. It is the discipline of the mind and spirit. The Templars know that a strong body alone is insufficient. A knight must have clarity of thought, steadfast faith, and the ability to act decisively in the face of danger. Night falls, and the fortresses are quiet once more. Torches flicker along the walls, casting dancing shadows. The knights gather for evening prayer, kneeling in the chapel that sits at the heart of the fortress. Their voices rise in soft harmony, echoing across stone walls and courtyards.
Afterward, some gather to discuss strategy. They consider the movements of rival forces, plan patrols along dangerous roads, and rehearse defenses against potential attacks. Each decision is informed not only by experience, but by careful study of terrain, supply lines, and the patterns of enemies. The Templars also guard sacred relics, objects of deep religious significance. Some are well known, others mysterious, whispered only in quiet corridors. These treasures are symbols of faith, not tools of power. Their protection is a sacred duty, a responsibility that defines the very soul of the order. Pilgrims traveling through the region begin to notice the difference. They see fortresses that rise like silent sentinels over the hills. They see white-cloaked knights who patrol the roads, always present, always vigilant. They hear tales of secret tunnels, hidden caches, and remarkable feats of engineering. The Templars are no longer just protectors, they are guardians of the sacred, stewards of knowledge, and pioneers of strategy. Even kings and nobles come to respect and sometimes fear their influence. The order grows, spanning cities and fortresses across the Holy Land. They communicate through letters, messengers, and a network of trust that ensures orders are followed and secrets remain safe. By the time evening prayer ends, the fortress is calm. The wind moves through the towers and arches, carrying the scent of earth, stone, and candles. The stars emerge one by one in the clear desert sky, silent witnesses to the order's quiet rise.
Hugues de Payens stands atop a tower, looking over the walls, the city, and the desert beyond. He feels the weight of responsibility settle on him, not just for his knights, not just for pilgrims, but for the very idea of a brotherhood that blends faith, courage, and knowledge. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of water from a small fountain trickles softly. The wind carries it across the courtyard. Knights kneel in quiet meditation, swords laid beside them, mantles draped neatly. And as the fortress sleeps, you can imagine the world outside. Pilgrims traveling safely along roads once fraught with danger, letters and messages moving between strongholds, and the Templars watching silently from towers, prepared to defend, to teach, and to guide. In this way, the Order becomes more than a military force. They are the guardians of faith, the keepers of secrets, and the architects of a legend that will endure long after the battles are over. The desert night stretches endlessly, and the stars shine down like silent witnesses. Somewhere, far away, the world moves forward. But within the walls of the Templar fortresses, the Order thrives, disciplined, wise, and unbroken. And in that stillness, you feel it, the quiet, unyielding presence of men who have dedicated their lives to something greater than themselves, and the beginnings of a story that will echo across centuries.
The sun rises over the coastal hills of the Levant, casting a pale golden glow across the city of Acre. From here, the Templars watch over the pilgrims, the markets, and the distant horizon where ships bring news from Europe. The Order has grown, not just in number, but in influence. Their presence is now felt in the corridors of power as much as on the battlefield. Kings and nobles come to respect, and sometimes fear, the Knights Templar. They see men who are disciplined, loyal, and incorruptible. The Templars answer to no king directly, only to the Church, yet their actions shape the decisions of rulers. Their counsel is sought, their support is crucial, and their loyalty is invaluable. Hugues de Payens and his council of senior knights meet in a quiet chamber of a fortress overlooking the city. Maps, scrolls, and letters are spread across a wooden table. The room smells of old parchment, ink, and candle wax. They discuss the movements of armies, the defense of cities, and the protection of pilgrim routes. Every decision is weighted, not just in strategy, but in faith. One knight speaks. The King of Jerusalem requests our aid in the north. His borders are threatened, and he seeks our counsel. Another responds, We will advise but not command. Our loyalty is to the Church, to the pilgrims, and to our vows.
Even as they operate in the shadows of kings, the Templars maintain humility. They do not seek crowns or titles. They do not seek wealth for themselves. Yet power, by its nature, begins to follow them. Lords donate land, castles, and resources. Kings send sons to train in their ranks, hoping that discipline and courage will rub off upon them. And the Templars are wise in their use of this influence. Fortresses are built in strategic locations, on hills, near passes, along trade routes. These strongholds protect the land and its people, but they also serve as symbols of stability in a world filled with unrest. A castle with a red cross flying high is more than a fortress. It is a beacon of hope for pilgrims and a warning to raiders. The Templars also manage wealth with unparalleled care. They store resources not for themselves, but to ensure that their forces, their fortresses, and their missions remain supported. Grain, weapons, and provisions are carefully accounted for. Every coin is tracked, every shipment is verified. Their efficiency becomes legendary, and soon even kings begin to rely on the Templars for logistical expertise. Yet with power comes temptation. Some rulers wish to bend the Templars to their will. Some nobles grow envious of their independence. But the order remains steadfast. Every action, every decision, every deployment is guided by the rule and by faith. Loyalty to God and to the pilgrims comes before loyalty to any earthly ruler.
In battles alongside Crusader kings, the Templars distinguish themselves not only in skill, but in unity. They act as the vanguard, the shock troops that can break enemy lines or protect retreating forces. Their training, discipline, and devotion make them unstoppable in formation. Tales spread of knights who hold their ground against overwhelming odds, who protect the innocent while facing armies 10 times their size. But the Templars are not reckless. They understand that wars are won as much by planning, intelligence, and diplomacy as by sword and shield. They send spies to gather information, scouts to watch enemy movements, and messengers to coordinate with allies across vast distances. Even the smallest decision, the placement of a watchtower, the timing of a march, can shift the balance of an entire campaign. Despite their growing influence, the Templars continue their core mission. Pilgrims are escorted safely across deserts and mountains. Roads are patrolled, trade is protected, cities are fortified. Every act reinforces their reputation. Men of faith who are unshakable in purpose, incorruptible in character, and unmatched in courage. And yet they remain humble. Even in the courts of kings, their white mantles and red crosses are symbols not of pride, but of service. Their counsel is given quietly, their victories credited to God, their sacrifices remembered only by those who were saved.
As the sun sets over Acre, painting the city in shades of gold and red, the knights gather once more for evening prayer. Their voices echo softly through the fortress halls. Outside, the city sleeps under the watchful eye of the Templars. Ships return from the Mediterranean, carrying news, goods, and sometimes young knights seeking training in the order. Hugues de Payens stands quietly, gazing over the walls. He sees the horizon, the fortresses, the roads lined with red crosses, and he understands the significance of what they have built. The order is more than an army. It is a network of faith, discipline, and service. It is a force that shapes the land, protects the people, and upholds the principles that guide their every action. Somewhere in the night, a desert wind stirs the banners. The Templars kneel in silence, their swords laid aside. Their purpose is clear, their discipline unbroken. And as the stars emerge above the fortified city, the order stands ready, prepared to face the challenges that lie ahead, faithful to their vows, and destined to leave a mark on history that will be remembered for centuries. The world may test them, kings may challenge them, and battles may rage, but the Knights Templar endure, a brotherhood of courage, faith, and honor that transcends the passage of time. And in the quiet of the fortress, as the moon rises over Acre, you can imagine the calm certainty of their presence, silent, watchful, and eternal.
The morning sun rises over the hills of the Holy Land, painting the fortresses and roads in soft gold. The Knights Templar had grown from a handful of pilgrims' guardians into a brotherhood respected and feared across kingdoms. Their white mantles with the red cross are now recognized far beyond the deserts of Palestine, symbols of courage, discipline, and unwavering faith. Yet even in their success, the Templars remain humble. They never forget their origins, the small group of 9 knights who walked the pilgrim roads, barefoot or sharing horses, committed to protect the helpless. That memory guides them in every action, every battle, every decision. Their influence spreads beyond the battlefield. The Templars act as advisors to kings, providing counsel grounded not in ambition but in strategy, ethics, and foresight. They oversee fortresses, manage vast resources, and safeguard sacred relics. Pilgrims travel with confidence, traders conduct business with security, and towns once vulnerable to raiders flourish under their protection. Yet their greatest legacy is not measured in victories, castles, or wealth. It lies in the ideals they embody: courage tempered by faith, strength guided by discipline, and loyalty unbroken by fear. They show the world that power without purpose is hollow, that discipline can be a shield, and that service to something greater than oneself leaves a mark far deeper than gold.
The desert wind carries whispers of their deeds, stories of knights who appear suddenly on perilous roads, defending the weak and vanishing without a trace, become legend. Generations of pilgrims, soldiers, and scribes retell these tales. Some call them miracles, others a brotherhood blessed by God, but all recognize that the Templars are extraordinary. Even as the Crusader states face challenges, political strife, internal conflicts, and external threats, the Templars endure. Their fortresses stand strong, their roads are patrolled, and their discipline ensures that every action aligns with their sacred vows. They become more than soldiers or monks. They are guardians of an ideal, living proof that faith and courage can coexist, shaping the world quietly but profoundly. In distant lands, the Templars' influence is felt. Nobles send sons to join their ranks, inspired by tales of bravery and honor. Kings seek their counsel, merchants rely on their protection, and even scholars study their strategies and codes. The order becomes a network that spans Europe and the Holy Land, bridging continents and cultures, connecting hearts and minds through discipline, service, and faith. Yet the Templars remain vigilant. They know that power invites envy, suspicion, and conflict. They continue to guard secrets of strategy, of treasure, of sacred knowledge, not for greed, but for the protection of what is holy and valuable. Their fortresses are safe havens, their roads lifelines, and their presence a constant reassurance that someone watches over the innocent.
Hugh de Payens, now aged but steady, walks through a quiet courtyard at dusk. He sees young squires training, experienced knights polishing armor, and chaplains tending to the spiritual needs of the order. The wind rustles the banners with red crosses, and the distant sun casts long shadows across the stone walls. He reflects on the journey, from 9 pilgrims' guardians to a brotherhood that has shaped the history of nations. And as night falls, the Templars gather for their final prayer of the day. Their voices rise softly in the fortress chapel, a serene echo of devotion that fills the stone halls. Outside, the stars emerge, illuminating the desert and the city with gentle light. In the quiet, you can imagine the Knights Templar riding through history, not only on the dusty roads of the Holy Land,
but across time itself. Their legacy persists in the ideals they championed: faith, courage, discipline, and the unwavering commitment to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Even after centuries, even after trials, betrayals, and battles lost, the memory of their deeds remains. Monuments, manuscripts, and whispers in history keep their story alive. They remind the world that true strength is measured not by conquest or wealth, but by honor, purpose, and the quiet courage to stand for what is right.
And so, as the desert night deepens and the wind carries the soft rustle of the banners, you feel it, the enduring presence of the warrior monks. They no longer fight with swords alone, but with ideals that traverse time, inspiring those who seek to protect, to serve, and to live with courage and faith. The Templars' journey has just begun, and their story continues in the hearts of those who remember them, silent, steadfast, and eternal. And as you close your eyes, drifting into sleep, you carry with you the calm knowledge that courage, guided by faith, leaves a light that never fades, a legacy that endures across the ages.
The sun rises slowly over the bustling streets of Jerusalem. Merchants shout their wares, camels shuffle along dusty roads, and pilgrims from distant lands kneel at the gates of the Holy Sepulchre. Coins clink in pockets. Bags are heavy with gold. Travelers cross deserts and mountains, but the journey carries risk, robbery, betrayal, or worse. For centuries, pilgrims had relied on luck, trusted guides, or the goodwill of strangers to transport their wealth safely across the Holy Land. Many never reached their destination. Gold and silver, painstakingly earned over months of labor, disappeared into the hands of thieves. Dreams of pilgrimage often ended in despair. It was during this time, in the early years of the Templar order, that a revolutionary idea began to form. Hugues de Payens and his fellow knights, who had already gained renown as protectors of pilgrims, realized that faith alone could not secure every journey. A more reliable method was needed. Not just swords, but systems. Not just protection, but innovation. The Templars had already established fortresses across Palestine and Europe, a network of strongholds that could shelter pilgrims and store supplies. And yet, they understood that wealth itself could be a tool, if managed wisely. Gold, after all, is heavy. Carrying it across mountains and deserts is perilous. A pilgrim might be robbed, attacked, or lost entirely. So the Templars began experimenting. They devised a system, elegant in its simplicity, revolutionary in its reach. A pilgrim could deposit gold at one Templar house in Europe, receiving a small parchment with a code, a secret seal, or a written instruction. That same pilgrim could then travel to Jerusalem and at a Templar house there exchange the parchment for an equivalent sum of gold. It was as if the money had traveled faster than the pilgrim himself. Coins remained safe, hidden from robbers, and yet accessible when needed. This idea was more than just convenience. It was trust. It was faith transformed into finance. The Templars had become the world's first international bankers. They did not charge high interest, nor did they exploit the pilgrims. Their system relied on honesty, secrecy, and meticulous record-keeping. Every transaction was carefully logged, every code accounted for. Word spread quickly. Pilgrims spoke in hushed tones about this miraculous method. Merchants began to rely on it for trade, and kings slowly realized the Templars' growing influence. Here were men who could move wealth safely across continents,
while remaining faithful to their sacred vows.
The Templars' banking system soon extended beyond pilgrims. Nobles began depositing gold, sending funds across borders to pay for armies, estates, or distant projects. Popes entrusted the order with funds to finance crusades or church affairs. Even kings found themselves relying on the Templars, their treasure moving safely through a network that was invisible to ordinary eyes. This new role transformed the Templars. They were no longer only warriors or monks. They became trusted advisors, financiers, and stewards of immense wealth. Their white mantles, once symbols solely of faith and courage, now carried the aura of trust and responsibility. But with great power came new challenges. Protecting money required vigilance, intelligence, and secrecy. The Templars maintained strict records, coded letters, and trained their knights in the delicate art of managing wealth. Any lapse could endanger not only a pilgrim's fortune, but the reputation of the order itself. Yet the Templars thrived. Their system worked because it was built on discipline, integrity, and careful planning. Pilgrims could walk across deserts, mountains, and war-torn lands, knowing that their gold would await them at the other end. Their journey became safer, their purpose clearer, and their faith reinforced, not just in God, but in the human ingenuity of the Templars.
The system was more than banking. It was a bridge between continents, a network connecting Europe and the Holy Land, linking faith in commerce, safety and ambition. And as the sun set over Jerusalem, casting golden light on the white mantles and red crosses, the Templars understood the enormity of what they had begun. They were no longer just guardians of pilgrims. They were pioneers of a new world, a world in which money could move safely, in which trust could be codified, and in which faith and finance could exist side by side. And so the seeds of one of history's greatest innovations were planted. In quiet chambers and bustling courtyards, among prayers and ledgers, the Templars became not only warriors of God, but architects of a financial empire that would endure for centuries. The desert night falls. The stars emerge, silent witnesses to a brotherhood that protects, prays, and now also safeguards the wealth of kings, pilgrims, and popes alike. Their legacy is just beginning.
Inside the cool stone walls of a Templar house in Paris, the air is filled with the soft rustle of parchment and the faint scent of ink. Candles flicker across wooden tables, illuminating the faces of monks and knights bent over ledgers. Every stroke of the quill is deliberate, every number carefully checked, for the ledger is the heart of the order's new power. The ledger is more than a record of money. It is a map of trust. Each deposit, withdrawal, and transfer is logged meticulously. Pilgrims, merchants, nobles, and even kings rely on these records, often unaware of the incredible complexity behind them. The Templars have devised a system that is part mathematics, part intuition, and part divine guidance. A young scribe, Guillaume, leans over a page, copying numbers into a bound ledger. His hand moves steadily, trained through hours of practice, his eyes scanning carefully for errors. Each entry represents gold deposited in one city, destined for another across mountains and seas. A single mistake could mean lost wealth, broken trust, or disaster.
But Guillaume is not alone. Senior Templars oversee the work, ensuring that every transaction adheres to the sacred principles of the order. Codes are written in secret ciphers known only to a select few. Parchments are sealed with wax, stamped with the Red Cross, and entrusted to couriers trained to protect their cargo.
This system allows a pilgrim in London to deposit gold and retrieve it in Jerusalem. The order has effectively created a proto-bank, centuries before banks would become common in Europe. Letters of credit, checks, and transfer orders are all carefully managed, each step recorded and safeguarded. The Templars also innovate to prevent fraud. Parchments carry unique symbols, coded instructions, and sometimes even micro-markings that identify authenticity. Couriers memorize routes, recognize fellow Templars by secret signals, and use hidden paths through forests, mountains, and deserts. Every precaution ensures that wealth remains secure, even in hostile lands. Over time, the Templars expand this system. Houses in Paris, London, Pisa, and beyond become hubs of financial activity. Wealth flows across borders with a reliability unseen elsewhere. Kings and nobles begin to rely on them, not only for protection, but for financial management. Popes entrust the order with funds to support crusades, church projects, and relief efforts. With wealth comes responsibility. The Templars are cautious, aware that their power is fragile. They cannot abuse trust, for their reputation is the backbone of the system. Every transaction is guided not by greed, but by integrity. Pilgrims and rulers alike place their faith in the order, and that faith must never be betrayed.
The ledger also reflects the order's discipline. Funds are allocated carefully, provisions for fortresses, salaries for guards, resources for missions, and assistance for pilgrims in need. Nothing is wasted, nothing unaccounted for. The Templars' financial management becomes legendary, not only for the security it provides, but for the efficiency and foresight it demonstrates. Even in distant lands, the system thrives. A Templar in Acre can coordinate with one in Paris, using coded messages to ensure that wealth moves where it is needed. Supplies, soldiers, and gold flow together, creating a network that connects continents. This network is invisible to outsiders, yet it is the bloodline of the Order's power. And yet, the Templars remain humble. They do not flaunt wealth. They do not seek profit for personal gain. Their purpose remains unchanged: to serve God, protect pilgrims, and maintain the order. The ledger is not merely a book of money. It is a testament to discipline, faith, and ingenuity. The Templars' financial system also fosters loyalty. Knights entrusted with funds must act with honesty and courage. Clerks who manage accounts must be vigilant and precise. Every member of the order understands that failure could imperil the lives of pilgrims, the stability of fortresses, or the trust of kings.
At night, as the city sleeps, candles burn in Templar houses. The soft scratching of quills continues, echoing through stone halls. Ledgers grow thick with records of gold, silver, and goods, a silent testament to the order's genius. Outside, the streets are quiet, but the wheels of a new financial empire turn steadily, guided by faith, discipline, and the steady hands of the Templars. The desert wind may howl, robbers may stalk the roads, and enemies may conspire. But inside the Templar houses, wealth flows safely. Gold moves across oceans, mountains, and rivers with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Every coin has a purpose, every entry a meaning, every parchment a promise. In this quiet diligence lies the heart of their innovation. The Knights Templar are more than warriors. They are the guardians of wealth, pioneers of banking, and architects of a system that will shape the world for centuries. And as the candles burn low, the scribes and knights rest with the calm knowledge that their work protects not only gold, but lives, faith, and the legacy of the order itself.
The early morning sun rises over the bustling port city of Marseille. Ships creak against their moorings, seagulls cry overhead, and merchants shout their wares to travelers hurrying along the cobblestone streets. Pilgrims gather, their faces lined with anticipation and worry, clutching sacks of gold earned through years of work or inheritance. For many, this journey is the culmination of a lifetime of devotion. Yet it is also a perilous venture across mountains, rivers, and deserts, through lands filled with bandits, rival armies, and the uncertainty of war. For centuries, the journey to the Holy Land carried grave risk. Pilgrims often traveled with caravans, hiring guards, or relying on luck to protect their wealth. Stories abounded of stolen treasure, ambushed travelers, and ruined devotion. The Templars, already renowned for their discipline, courage, and devotion, recognized a need that extended beyond physical protection. Faith alone could not secure a journey. They needed innovation. Thus arose the Templar system of letters of credit, the foundation of their banking empire. A pilgrim in Marseille could deposit gold at a Templar house and receive a coded letter, carefully sealed with wax and stamped with the distinctive red cross. This letter, often written in a complex code known only to the order, served as a promise. The bearer could retrieve the equivalent sum of gold at a Templar house in Acre, Jerusalem, or another stronghold across the Holy Land.
The genius of the system lay not only in its simplicity, but also in its reliability. The letters carried unique symbols, codes, and instructions to ensure authenticity. Any attempt at forgery would be immediately detected. Couriers trained by the Templars memorized routes, signals, and safe houses, ensuring that the letters traveled securely through forests, mountains, and war-torn territories. A pilgrim named Matthew, a devout merchant from Lyon, prepares for his journey. He hands a small bag of gold to the Templar clerk, who carefully logs the amount in the ledger, stamps a wax seal, and hands Matthew a folded parchment. Matthew studies the symbols, memorizes the instructions, and tucks the letter into his tunic. He feels a calm confidence, knowing that his wealth is secure, yet accessible thousands of miles away. The journey is treacherous. Matthew rides through rocky passes, crosses rivers swollen with spring rains, and navigates deserts that stretch endlessly. Bandits emerge from the shadows, but he carries no gold to tempt them. Instead, he carries the Templar letter, a promise encoded in ink and wax, backed by an order whose discipline is unmatched. He is protected not only by the roads patrolled by Templars, but by a network of trust that spans Europe and the Levant. At a Templar house in Jerusalem, Matthew presents his letter. A clerk inspects the symbols, compares the codes with the master ledger, and nods. Gold is handed over, counted meticulously and placed in Matthew's hands. Relief floods him. The journey has been successful, and his devotion remains intact. The letter, once a simple piece of parchment, has become a bridge between continents, a tangible symbol of security, trust, and faith.
The Templars' system quickly extends beyond pilgrims. Merchants begin using it to transfer funds for trade. A merchant in Pisa can finance a shipment of silk to Acre without carrying sacks of gold across dangerous seas. Kings and nobles entrust large sums, confident in the order's reputation for integrity and discipline. Even the papacy utilizes the system to fund crusades, construct churches, and send aid across distant lands. To manage this growing network, the Templars develop rigorous methods. Ledgers are kept meticulously, often replicated in multiple locations to safeguard against loss or destruction. Codes are constantly updated to prevent misuse. Couriers are trained not only to memorize routes, but to recognize fellow Templars using subtle gestures or phrases as signals in the midst of a crowd. The Order's coordination rivals any army in its precision. The letters themselves are works of innovation. Some contain intricate codes based on geometry, symbols, or Latin phrases that only authorized Templars could interpret. Others are accompanied by small charms or marks etched into the parchment, serving as authentication. Every precaution ensures that wealth is not only safe, but that the system cannot be easily exploited. Trust, however, is the most crucial element. Pilgrims, merchants, and nobles rely on the Templars' reputation above all else. One betrayal could destroy decades of work, unraveling a network that spans thousands of miles. The Order enforces strict discipline, punishing breaches of trust with severity. Every member understands that their honor and faith are intertwined with the security of wealth entrusted to them.
As the system grows, so does the Order's influence. Templar houses become hubs of activity. Clerks, scribes, and knights coordinating finances, protecting travelers, and ensuring the smooth operation of the letters. Wealth, once cumbersome and dangerous to transport, now moves effortlessly across continents, guided by faith, discipline, and ingenuity. Even in times of conflict, the network remains operational. Letters travel through besieged cities, across enemy territory, and over mountain passes where ordinary merchants dare not venture. Pilgrims and nobles alike marvel at the reliability of the system. Tales spread of letters safely delivering gold even amidst wars and upheavals, further cementing the Templars' legendary reputation. Beyond practicality, the system also shapes society. Pilgrims feel safe to undertake journeys they might once have avoided. Trade flourishes as merchants can move wealth securely. Kings and rulers recognize that power is not merely in armies or fortresses, but also in the ability to manage resources effectively. The Templars, through letters and ledgers, subtly influence politics, economics, and faith across Europe and the Holy Land. By nightfall, the Templar house in Jerusalem is quiet. Candles flicker in the windows, illuminating ledgers and parchments stacked carefully on tables. Couriers rest, readying themselves for the next day's journey. Outside, the city sleeps, unaware of the silent network that crisscrosses continents, ensuring wealth, faith, and trust remain intact.
In this quiet diligence lies the brilliance of the Templars. They are warriors, yes, but also pioneers of finance. Their letters connect continents, protect pilgrims, and move gold with an efficiency unmatched in their era. They are not merely a religious order or an army, they are the architects of a system that will influence banking and trade for centuries. As the desert wind sweeps across the hills and stars emerge above the distant mountains, one can imagine Mathieu and countless others resting safely, their gold secure, their faith intact, and their journey protected by a brotherhood whose innovation is as remarkable as their courage. The Templar letters, the codices, the careful ledgers, all are pieces of a living system, a testament to discipline, ingenuity, and trust. And as the night deepens, the Order stands vigilant, not only with swords, but with the quiet, enduring power of finance, ensuring that pilgrims, merchants, and kings alike can move wealth across the world with confidence and peace of mind.
The first light of dawn spills over the hills of Paris, glinting off the slate roofs and the spires of distant cathedrals. Beneath the quiet streets, hidden in fortified houses, the Templars move silently through corridors lined with locked chests, ledgers, and vaults. Here, in these chambers, lies more than gold and silver. It is a treasury built from faith, strategy, and extraordinary discipline. The Templars' wealth grows steadily, derived not from conquest, but from service. Pilgrims entrust their coins, merchants place their trust in letters of credit, and kings rely on the order to move funds securely across Europe and the Holy Land. With each transaction, the order becomes richer, not through greed, but through meticulous record-keeping and the trust they inspire. At the heart of the treasury is a collection of physical gold, silver, and precious items, stored carefully, counted daily, and recorded in multiple ledgers. Each chest is sealed with wax, stamped with the Red Cross, and monitored by knights sworn to vigilance. Even a minor clerk would know that a misstep could risk the lives of pilgrims or the order's hard-earned reputation. Some of the wealth comes from donations. Nobles and monarchs, impressed by the Templars' courage and service, gift estates, lands, and funds. These are carefully integrated into the order's network. Some castles are converted into safe houses for pilgrims. Others serve as financial hubs, where wealth can be stored, transferred, and protected.
But much of the Templars' treasure is intangible, held in letters of credit, obligations, and promises. A gold coin in Paris may correspond to one in Acre or London, tracked meticulously in multiple ledgers. The system relies on precision and integrity. Mistakes are rare, and breaches of trust are met with swift discipline, reinforcing the order's reputation as the most reliable financial institution of the medieval world. The Templars also employ innovative methods to hide their wealth from prying eyes. Secret chambers, hidden vaults, and subterranean tunnels connect houses, fortresses, and strongholds. Only the most trusted knights know the full layout. Some passages lead to treasure rooms, others are decoys. Even the location of some assets is known only to the Grand Master. This secrecy ensures that the order can protect itself and those who entrust it with wealth. A young knight named Bernard stands guard over one of these hidden chambers in Jerusalem. The stone walls echo with his careful footsteps as he patrols the vaults. His white mantle is immaculate, his sword at the ready, yet his duty extends beyond defense. He protects a network of trust that spans continents. Gold coins, jewels, manuscripts, and coded letters lie beneath his watch, a testament to the Templars' ingenuity. The Order's financial expertise also extends to loans and credit. Kings and nobles may require funds for military campaigns, construction, or trade. The Templars provide resources, carefully accounting for repayments and interest in a way that preserves their neutrality. Their role is not to exploit, but to ensure that projects succeed while wealth flows safely and securely.
Some scholars and monks study the Templars' methods, intrigued by the sophistication of their bookkeeping and the reliability of their systems. Ledgers include columns for deposits, withdrawals, allocations, and reserves. Clerks use codes and abbreviations, ensuring that even if documents fall into the wrong hands, the information is unintelligible without knowledge of the system. In addition to gold and letters, the Templars safeguard sacred relics. These are stored in the same vaults as the treasure, protected by the same discipline and secrecy. Some are widely known: crosses, manuscripts, and ceremonial items, while others are whispered about in legend. The combination of wealth and sacred artifacts adds to the aura of the order, blending faith, finance, and mystery into a powerful symbol. Across Europe, the Templars manage estates, rents, and resources with extraordinary efficiency. Grain, livestock, and trade goods are carefully accounted for. Any surplus is stored, allocated, or moved to strategic locations. This logistical mastery supports the order's fortresses, sustains armies, and ensures pilgrims are protected even in times of famine or war.
Night falls over Paris. Candlelight dances across stone walls, illuminating ledgers and treasure chests. Couriers prepare letters of credit for dispatch to Jerusalem, London, and beyond. Knights patrol quietly, their presence both protective and reassuring. The order operates like a living organism, with wealth moving, people working, and trust maintained, all synchronized with discipline honed over decades. Even distant kings marveled at the Templars' financial acumen. They recognized that this network of treasure, letters, and trust is unparalleled in the medieval world. Gold flows efficiently, risk is minimized, and the order's reputation for honesty ensures loyalty. Pilgrims can journey safely, merchants can trade securely, and rulers can act with confidence. The brilliance of the Templar system lies in its integration of wealth, faith, and discipline. Coins, letters, and ledgers are not merely tools, they are part of a larger vision. The order demonstrates that power, when combined with integrity and purpose, can protect not only riches, but lives, faith, and the stability of entire regions. And as the desert wind brushes through the Templar houses in Jerusalem and the streets of Paris, one can imagine the immense network of treasure moving silently, watched over by devoted knights, clerks, and scribes. Gold, letters, and faith converge into a system that is at once practical, innovative, and enduring.
The morning sun casts long shadows over the streets of Paris and London, while far away the deserts of the Holy Land glimmer under a fiery dawn. Across Europe and the Levant, merchants, pilgrims, and kings begin their days, unaware of the invisible force that guides the flow of wealth and protects their fortunes. The Knights Templar. By now, the Order's financial network has grown into something unprecedented. Their letters of credit, ledgers, and vaults extend across kingdoms, connecting cities like Paris, London, Pisa, Acre, and Jerusalem. Gold, silver, and valuable goods move seamlessly, guided by an army of clerks, couriers, and knights whose discipline is unmatched. The Templars have become the first truly international bankers, trusted by pilgrims, merchants, and sovereigns alike. Kings once wary of outside influence now seek the Templars' guidance. A monarch in France may need to fund an army to defend his borders or support a crusade in distant lands. The Templars, with their wealth and impeccable reputation, provide loans, manage transfers, and ensure that resources reach their destination safely. Their neutrality and integrity make them indispensable even to rulers who would otherwise see one another as rivals. The popes, too, recognize the order's unique position. Ecclesiastical projects, cathedrals, missions, or relief efforts require resources transported safely across Europe and the Middle East. The Templars manage these with precision, ensuring that funds are allocated correctly and reach those in need. In this way, the order becomes a bridge between spiritual authority and worldly necessity, blending faith with practical governance.
Yet, managing this empire requires extraordinary coordination. Ledgers are meticulously maintained, with every deposit, withdrawal, and transaction carefully logged.
Coded letters travel from Paris to Jerusalem, accompanied by trusted couriers who memorize routes, recognize fellow knights through secret signals, and navigate dangerous terrain. The success of the system depends not only on discipline, but on the unwavering trust of those involved. Consider a pilgrim from Florence, traveling to the Holy Sepulchre with a small fortune entrusted to the Templars. The gold never touches his hands, yet he knows it is safe. Across the Mediterranean, a merchant from Venice finances trade in spices and silks using the same system. Kings fund campaigns, nobles secure estates, and the church supports missions, all relying on the same invisible network. The Templars' influence grows quietly but steadily. Their financial power translates into political clout. Monarchs consult them not only on matters of money, but on strategy, diplomacy, and logistics. To the rulers of Europe, the order is more than a military force. It is a trusted advisor, a guardian of wealth, and a stabilizing presence in turbulent times. Within the order, strict rules govern the management of wealth. Every knight, clerk, and courier understands that a single misstep could imperil lives, erode trust, and endanger the order's reputation. Punishments for negligence are severe, reinforcing the importance of vigilance, honesty, and discipline. The system works because every member is invested in its success, not for personal gain, but for faith and duty.
Beyond Europe, the Templars' financial empire reaches into the Holy Land. Fortresses in Acre, Jerusalem, and Tyre act as both military strongholds and banking hubs. Gold, grain, weapons, and letters flow through these centers, ensuring that crusaders, pilgrims, and settlements are sustained. Wealth is managed as carefully as armies, with precision, foresight, and unwavering dedication. The order's influence is not merely financial, it shapes society itself. Pilgrims undertake journeys with confidence. Trade flourishes as merchants move funds safely, and rulers can plan campaigns with reliable access to resources. By bridging the realms of finance, politics, and faith, the Templars create a web of stability across Europe and the Middle East, quietly shaping the course of history. Even in times of war, the system endures. Letters of credit continue to circulate, wealth moves despite sieges or blockades, and couriers navigate dangerous roads with vigilance and courage. Pilgrims and rulers alike marvel at the reliability of the order, further enhancing its reputation. Stories of gold safely delivered through hostile lands become legend, reinforcing the Templars' mystique. The Templars' financial empire also brings them into contact with new ideas and technologies. They develop accounting methods, encryption techniques, and logistical strategies that rival any contemporary institution. Ledgers are carefully duplicated, coded letters constantly evolve, and couriers are trained rigorously to ensure flawless execution. The sophistication of their system sets a precedent for future banking institutions across Europe.
Yet the order remains humble. Knights live simply, cloaked in their white mantles with red crosses, their wealth serving a purpose beyond personal gain. The gold, letters, and estates exist to protect, to serve, and to maintain faith. Every transaction, every coded letter, every guarded vault is a testament to discipline, integrity, and vision. By nightfall, Templar houses in Paris and Acre are quiet, lit by flickering candlelight.
Ledgers are updated, letters prepared for dispatch, and knights patrol silently, ensuring that the flow of wealth remains secure. Across mountains, rivers, and seas, the Order's network hums with precision, an invisible yet unbreakable chain linking continents. The Templars' financial empire demonstrates that power, when combined with discipline and integrity, can transcend borders and influence history. Kings rely on them, popes entrust them, and pilgrims depend on them. They are warriors, monks, and bankers, their strength not only in arms, but in the invisible systems they create. As the stars rise over Europe and the Holy Land, one can imagine the vast network of the Order. Letters traveling across continents, gold moving safely, and faith intertwined with financial genius. The Templars have not only protected pilgrims and fought wars, they have pioneered a system of trust and stability that reshapes the medieval world. And as the night deepens, their legacy endures, quietly, invisibly, yet profoundly. They are more than knights or bankers. They are the architects of a financial empire that bridges faith, discipline, and innovation. A legacy that will influence generations to come.
The year is 1307, and the winds of change sweep across Europe with an unsettling intensity. In castles and courts, whispers circulate. A storm is coming for the Knights Templar. For decades, the Order has amassed incredible influence, a network of fortresses, a financial empire trusted by kings and popes, and wealth beyond imagining. But wealth and power, as always, attract envy, suspicion, and betrayal. King Philip IV of France, known as Philip the Fair, finds himself in desperate need. Wars drain his treasury, debts weigh heavily on his crown, and he eyes the Templars' riches with a covetous glare. Though the Order is loyal, disciplined, and bound by faith, Philip sees opportunity. He plots to eliminate the Knights and seize their assets. In the early hours of Friday, October 13th, 1307, a coordinated operation unfolds across France. Templar knights are arrested simultaneously in Paris, Marseille, and dozens of other cities. Soldiers, acting on the king's orders, moved with precision. The white mantles, once symbols of courage and trust, are ripped from shoulders. The red crosses are stained with betrayal. Knights are imprisoned, their vast network of treasure and letters suddenly under threat. Hugh de Payen's vision of a financial and spiritual empire seems on the brink of collapse. Fortresses that once stood secure now tremble under suspicion and political intrigue. Ledgers are seized, coded letters intercepted, and couriers questioned. The treasures, accumulated through faith and diligence, are now at the mercy of the crown.
Yet even in this peril, the Templars' legacy is resilient. Their records and knowledge are so intricate, so well protected, that not all can be uncovered. Some treasure disappears into hidden vaults and secret passages, unknown even to the king. Letters of credit, codes, and fortresses that span Europe allow portions of wealth to escape seizure. The Templars had always planned for uncertainty, and their foresight now safeguards fragments of their empire. Trials follow, designed to justify Philip's actions. Knights are accused of heresy, corruption, and sacrilege, charges widely considered fabricated. The trials are brutal, public, and designed to break the Order's influence. Yet the truth cannot be entirely silenced. Many knights, even when tortured, refuse to betray their principles or reveal the location of hidden treasures. Their discipline, once harnessed to finance and defense, now protects the most intimate secrets of the order. Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master, is brought before the court. Age has etched lines of wisdom on his face, but his eyes burn with the same courage that defined the early knights. He refuses to confess to crimes he did not commit. He remains steadfast, his faith and honor intact. When the flames of execution finally claim him, he allegedly curses King Philip IV and Pope Clement V, a dramatic act that will echo through history. The Templars' financial empire, though diminished, leaves a lasting imprint. Kings, merchants, and pilgrims who once relied on their system are left with lessons of trust, discipline, and innovation. Even in downfall, the order's methods influence banking, trade, and accounting practices for generations. Letters of credit, risk management, and secure financial transfers evolve into the foundations of modern banking.
Across Europe, whispers of lost treasures fuel legend. Hidden vaults, secret letters, and coded messages are rumored to exist in abbeys, castles, and remote forests. Stories circulate of knights fleeing with gold, manuscripts, and sacred relics. Some say the Templars hid the Holy Grail or other artifacts of immense power. Others insist that their treasure financed secret missions, supported noble heirs, or vanished into forgotten tunnels. Whether myth or reality, these stories cement the mystique of the order. Even centuries later, the Templars' legacy endures. Historians, scholars, and treasure hunters study their methods, marveling at their innovation, discipline, and courage. Manuscripts reveal the sophistication of their ledgers, the encryption of their letters, and the brilliance of their cross-continental networks. Pilgrims, once protected by Templar knights, now walk paths documented in meticulous records that have survived wars, fires, and political upheaval. The order's downfall is a reminder of the fragility of human institutions. Wealth, power, and influence can invite envy and danger. Yet the principles the Templars upheld, integrity, faith, and discipline, endure far longer than the fortresses they built or the gold they safeguarded. Their story becomes a lesson not only in finance, but in resilience, leadership, and vision. In quiet monasteries, far from the battles and betrayals, the memory of the Templars persists. Chronicles recount the knights' courage, their innovation, and the network that spanned continents. Gold, letters, and coded ledgers become symbols of a time when faith and finance converged, creating a system that transcended geography and politics.
As night falls over the cities of Europe and the deserts of the Holy Land, the stars cast their light on silent fortresses, abandoned chapels, and hidden vaults. One can imagine the whispers of knights, the careful movements of clerks, and the unseen journey of letters carrying wealth and trust across continents. Though the order has fallen, its influence lingers in finance, in faith, and in the stories that continue to inspire wonder. The Templars, once the world's first international bankers, warriors, and monks, have vanished from the surface of power. Yet their legacy is eternal. Their methods shaped kingdoms, guided pilgrims, and built a financial system centuries ahead of its time. The letters, ledgers, and treasures, though scattered or hidden, remain testaments to ingenuity, courage, and trust. And as you drift into sleep, you can imagine the quiet corridors of Templar fortresses, the flicker of candlelight across ancient ledgers, and the silent movement of wealth, knowledge, and faith. A system that bridged continents, protected lives, and left a mark on history that no fire, sword, or king could entirely erase. The Knights Templar may have fallen, but the spirit of their innovation endures. Faith and discipline, courage and ingenuity, These remain their true treasures, a legacy that survives the centuries and continues to inspire, quietly, across the pages of history.
It is early morning in Paris, the year 1307. The sky is still dark, the streets are silent, and a pale mist clings to the cobblestones. You can almost hear the soft clatter of hooves in the distance, faint, rhythmic, deliberate. A messenger rides quietly through the narrow alleys, carrying sealed orders from the king himself. No one knows yet that the world is about to change forever. You take a slow breath. The air smells faintly of rain and smoke from distant hearths. Somewhere, a church bell tolls once, then falls silent. Across France, men are already awake, knights, monks, servants, all wearing the white mantles marked with a red cross, the Knights Templar. A brotherhood unlike any other, bound by vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. For nearly 2 centuries, they have stood as protectors of pilgrims, defenders of the Holy Land, and guardians of secrets too great to name. But tonight, while they sleep inside their fortresses and commanderies, another kind of brotherhood prepares to move. Men loyal not to God, but to a king, Philip IV of France. A ruler so ambitious and so deeply in debt that he is willing to destroy the very order that once protected him.
Imagine the king's palace that night. Torches flicker on stone walls, the air heavy with wax and whispers. In his private chamber, Philip stands before a long oak table, staring at a map of France. Tiny red marks dot the parchment, each one representing a Templar stronghold. He speaks softly to his advisors, his voice calm but cold. At dawn, he says, no Templar in my realm must remain free. The order is clear. On Friday, October 13th, 1307, every Templar in France will be arrested. On the same morning, at the same hour. A day that will echo through history. Far away, inside the Temple of Paris, the great fortress of the Order, the brothers rise for morning prayer. Their voices fill the chapel with low, resonant chants. Candlelight glimmers off armor and stone. They have no idea that outside, in the misty streets, soldiers are already taking their positions.
You can almost feel the tension in the air, a silence before thunder. Somewhere in the courtyard, a young squire feeds the horses, noticing how quiet the city feels. He looks up at the gray sky and wonders if it will rain. Moments later, a sound breaks the stillness, the faint jingle of chainmail. Then another and another. The squire frowns. Through the gate's small window, he sees shapes moving in the fog. Soldiers, hundreds of them. He runs to alert the commander, but by the time he reaches the great hall, it's too late. Outside, the royal troops surge forward. The gates shudder under their battering rams. Men shout. Swords clash. Dogs bark wildly. The city of Paris, usually so calm at dawn, now awakens to chaos. Inside, the Templars scramble to defend themselves, but they're outnumbered and shocked. They had no warning. Many lay down their arms, confused, calling out, "In God's name, what is this?" But the answer never comes.
Only the clanging of metal and the shouts of soldiers following the king's secret command. By sunrise, it is over. The red cross that once symbolized faith and courage now hangs heavy with the weight of betrayal. Hundreds of knights are bound in chains and marched through the streets. The people watch in silence, too afraid or
too astonished to speak. As the sun rises above Paris, its golden light touches the towers of the temple. It should be a holy morning, a day of prayer. Instead, it is the day the Templars fell. In castles and commanderies across France, the same scene unfolds. From Normandy to Toulouse, from Poitiers to Marseille, one by one, the king's soldiers carry out their orders with ruthless precision. It is as if the very earth itself has turned against the once invincible order. And all of it began with a lie. Behind the silence, behind the dawn mist and the clatter of hooves, there is a secret, a sealed letter delivered to every royal official days earlier. Each letter, marked with the king's seal, carried the same instruction: do not open until the night of October 12th.
When the letters were opened, the shock spread like wildfire. They contained detailed instructions for the arrests, accusations of heresy, blasphemy, and unspeakable crimes. The charges were false, but the power of the crown made them deadly. Philip had prepared everything. The Templars' downfall was not a sudden act of rage. It was a carefully planned betrayal, driven by greed and fear. As evening falls that same day, the prisons of Paris fill with men who once stood as the guardians of Christendom. Their white mantles are torn and dirtied, their swords confiscated. They pray in whispers now, unsure of what comes next. One of them, an older knight with silver hair, looks through the bars of his cell toward the setting sun. He closes his eyes and murmurs, "We have served God faithfully. If this is His will, then we accept it." The light fades, the city quiets, and so ends the day that began in silence. Friday the 13th, a day cursed not by superstition, but by human betrayal.
The prisons of Paris are heavy with silence. Torchlight flickers across damp stone walls. Outside, autumn winds whisper through the narrow streets, carrying with them the faint sound of church bells. The city, unaware of the full truth, begins to speak in hushed rumors. The Templars are heretics. The king has proof. But truth, as it often does, hides beneath layers of fear and power. King Philip IV sits once again in his private chamber, surrounded by scrolls, ledgers, and debt records. The air smells of ink, old parchment, and the faint metallic scent of coins that no longer belong to him. He is known as Philip the Fair, handsome in appearance, but cold and calculating within. Behind those pale eyes lies a single thought: money is power, and the Templars have too much of both. Years earlier, during his wars against England, Philip had borrowed vast sums from the Knights Templar. They had financed his campaigns, guarded his treasure, and even stored his royal seal in their temple fortress. The king trusted them once, but debt breeds resentment, and envy is a quiet poison. As the wars dragged on, Philip's treasury ran dry. The people suffered from taxes, the nobles grew restless, and the church itself whispered discontent. Yet, in the center of Paris, the Templars' fortress remained full of gold, grain, jewels, and power. To a desperate king, that was an irresistible temptation. Still, greed alone was not enough. He needed a reason, a righteous excuse to destroy them publicly. And so he turned to the only force greater than kings, the church.
At this time, the papal throne was occupied by Pope Clement V, a cautious and sickly man, recently moved to the French city of Avignon. Many whispered that he was not truly free, that he was the Pope of France, not of God. Philip's shadow stretched even into the Holy See. The king's messengers arrived at Avignon carrying reports, dark, shocking reports. They claimed the Templars were guilty of heresy, idol worship, and secret blasphemies, that they spat on the cross during initiation, that they worshipped a mysterious head, Baphomet they called it, that they denied Christ, performed strange rituals, and guarded forbidden knowledge.
The Pope trembled as he read the accusations. He had no proof, only words. But words, when whispered by a king, can shape empires. In truth, Clement knew better. The Templars had always been loyal servants of the Church, obedient and disciplined. But the Pope was weak, his position fragile. Philip had already pressured him once before, forcing him to disband the powerful Knights Hospitaller in France and to allow royal control over church funds. Now the king wanted more. Philip sent his envoys with a veiled threat. "Holy Father," they said, "the order of the temple has grown corrupt. If you defend them, your silence will make you complicit." Clement hesitated, he prayed, he delayed. But on that fateful dawn, Friday, October 13th, Philip acted before the Pope could intervene. By the time news reached Avignon, the arrests had already begun. Now the damage was done. Letters poured in from across France. Hundreds of knights imprisoned, commanders captured, treasuries seized. The Pope, outraged yet helpless, demanded to see the evidence. Philip sent confessions extracted under torture.
In a dark cell beneath Paris, a Templar knight hangs between life and death. The inquisitors question him relentlessly. "Confess," they say, "admit your crimes." He tries to speak, but his throat is dry and his lips are bleeding. After hours of agony, he whispers the words they want to hear, not because they are true, but because the pain has become unbearable. His confession is written down, sealed, and sent to the king as proof. In the royal palace, Philip reads the parchment with quiet satisfaction. His counselors stand by, uneasy but silent. The king folds the paper and says softly, "God has judged them." But deep down, he knows this is no act of divine justice, only human ambition. The Templars' vast network, from England to Spain, from France to Jerusalem, begins to crumble. Their properties are seized, their reputations destroyed. Even ordinary people begin to avoid them, fearing damnation by association. And all of this is done in the name of faith.
Meanwhile, Pope Clement struggles with guilt. At night, he cannot sleep. He imagines the faces of men he once blessed, now branded as heretics. He knows the truth will one day come to light, yet fear binds him more tightly than any chain. Finally, under pressure, he issues a formal decree. The Church will investigate the order of the Templars. It is not a defense, it is a compromise, but it gives the king exactly what he needs: legitimacy. Weeks turn into months, trials begin. In dimly lit halls, the Inquisition interrogates the brothers one by one. Their answers vary. Some deny everything. Some confess through tears. Others remain silent. The truth becomes lost in a sea of pain and politics. And still, the king's debt disappears, erased by royal decree. The Templars' treasures are confiscated. What cannot be found is declared missing, a lost treasure that will one day become legend.
But not everyone believes the king's story. Whispers spread through the streets of Paris. If the Templars are guilty, why do they pray, even as they are tortured? If they serve the devil, why does the Pope hesitate? And among the imprisoned knights, a quiet vow begins to form. A vow that even if their bodies are broken, the truth and their brotherhood will never die. That night, as the city sleeps, an old monk records the day's events in a worn leather book. His candle burns low, the wax dripping slowly down the brass holder. He writes one final line before closing the cover. The king has won the battle of gold, but he has lost the war of souls. He blows out the candle. Darkness returns. And somewhere in that darkness, a curse begins to whisper, a curse that will one day haunt both king and pope.
The days that followed the arrests felt endless. Autumn turned to winter, and the cold crept through the walls of every prison in France. In the dungeons of Paris, the Knights Templar waited, not for rescue, but for judgment. Some prayed, others sat in silence, and a few whispered old prayers they barely remembered, trying to keep their sanity intact. Outside, the world carried on. Merchants still opened their stalls, children still played in the muddy streets, and the bells of Notre Dame still rang for Mass. But for those imprisoned, time had stopped on Friday the 13th. Each sunrise was only a reminder that freedom was not coming. In one of those cells sat Geoffrey de Charnay, a veteran knight with silver hair and a scar that crossed his cheek like an old memory. He had fought in the Holy Land, seen the sun rise over Jerusalem, and had buried brothers under the sand. Now he sat in chains, listening to the drip of water and the distant screams from the torture chambers below. He knew what was happening. He knew the pattern: a question, a refusal, a scream, and then silence. Every night the same rhythm, every morning the same whispers of those who broke. When his turn came, he didn't fight. He looked straight into the eyes of his inquisitor and said calmly, "You may have my body, but not my soul." The inquisitors, agents of both church and crown, believed they were serving justice, but their chambers were lit not by holiness, only by torchlight and fear. The smell of smoke, sweat, and iron filled the air. Chains rattled softly, like whispers from the underworld. One by one, the knights were brought forward. They were shown the tools, the rack, the ropes, the irons heated red. Some fainted before the questioning even began. Others endured until their voices broke into hoarse cries. And yet, some still refused to speak. These were men who had once charged into battle without fear, men who had faced death countless times for their faith. But now, death would come not from an enemy's blade, but from the same church they had sworn to protect. The charges were read aloud, slowly, deliberately. Denying Christ, spitting upon the cross, worshiping idols,
practicing secret rites.
Every word felt heavier than the stones of the temple itself. And though the knights denied each accusation, the outcome was already decided. For the king needed guilt, not truth. In the great hall of the temple fortress, now seized by royal guards, Philip's clerks recorded the confessions. Scribes worked by candlelight, copying words that had been wrung from broken men. Each parchment sealed another soul's fate. The accused admits to kissing the master on the mouth during initiation. The accused confesses to denying Christ 3 times. The accused admits to worshiping a head-shaped idol. Lies. But written lies become history when spoken by power. Philip's treasury grew, his debts erased, and his control over France strengthened. And yet, something uneasy stirred within his court. Even his own advisors began to wonder whether they had crossed a line no man should. Meanwhile, in Avignon, Pope Clement V read the reports in disbelief. He ordered his own investigators to examine the matter, hoping to find truth amidst the smoke. But even he could not escape the king's shadow. Whenever he delayed, Philip reminded him, "You owe your throne to me."
So the Pope watched powerless as the trials expanded beyond France. In England, Spain, Portugal, and Germany, kings and bishops hesitated to follow France's lead. Some refused to arrest the Templars at all, claiming they had found no evidence of heresy. But the damage was done. The once holy order of the Temple had become a symbol of fear. Inside the Paris dungeon, winter deepened. The walls wept with moisture, and the prisoners huddled together for warmth. Some whispered prayers, others recited psalms until their voices faded into sleep. One night, an old knight named Amory de Villiers spoke softly to the men around him. "Brothers, we are not forsaken. The truth sleeps, but it does not die." A young squire asked, "Will anyone remember us?" Amory smiled faintly in the darkness. "History remembers everything, even lies. But someday, someone will seek the truth beneath them." The others nodded. In that moment, surrounded by chains and shadows, they found a small flicker of peace.
Outside, the king celebrated his victory. He had broken the mightiest order in Christendom. But in his dreams, he began to see faces, men in white cloaks, their eyes glowing with quiet accusation. No one knew this then, but the seeds of the Templar curse were already sown in his heart. Months later, a handful of knights were brought before the public. Under the watchful eyes of thousands, they were ordered to repeat their confessions. Some did, trembling. Others stood tall, their voices clear even after months of torment. One declared, "We have sinned only in trusting the wrong king." The crowd fell silent. Even the guards hesitated. For a brief moment, truth pierced through the fog of lies, and the king turned away, unwilling to meet the gaze of the men he had destroyed. As winter finally gave way to spring, the trials continued. Many knights died in their cells. Some were released, broken in body and spirit, and a few, miraculously, escaped, vanishing into the forests, mountains, and ports of Europe. Their names erased from record, their loyalty eternal. One cold dawn, a scribe in the royal archive sealed the final confession scroll. He dipped his quill, wrote the date, and closed the ledger. He thought of the men who had once guarded pilgrims in Jerusalem, who had faced armies for the sake of faith. He wondered quietly
if justice had truly been served. Then he blew out his candle, and in the smoke it almost looked like the shape of a cross.
You're standing inside the stone walls of the royal dungeon beneath the towers of Paris. The air is damp and smells of rusted chains, sweat, and the faint trace of smoke from the torches that burn low along the corridors. The whispers of prisoners echo in the dark, words carried by fear, regret, and disbelief. And in one of those cold, narrow cells sits Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master of the Knights Templar. His white mantle, once bright with the red cross of the order, is now torn and gray with dust. Yet in his eyes the same unbroken resolve glows, quiet, unwavering, unshaken. He has been tortured. The marks of it are clear, but even in this ruin of silence, he holds himself upright, hands clasped as if in prayer. Outside, the guards mutter. They know who he is. A man once obeyed by kings, now left to rot beneath their feet. The world above continues to spin, but slowly the truth begins to bend, because something strange is happening. The Templars' arrest was meant to erase them, to make people forget, but the people of France begin to whisper. How can men of God, who bled for Christ, be witches, heretics? Some no longer believe the king's story. In taverns and monasteries, in silent streets, the question spreads like smoke.
Meanwhile, King Philip grows restless. The gold he stole from the Templar vaults doesn't bring him peace. It buys him time to pay debts, time to silence rivals, but the church murmurs uneasily. Pope Clement, caught between guilt and fear, begins to waver. You imagine Jacques de Molay kneeling on the stone floor, whispering prayers in Latin, not for freedom, but for truth. He remembers the young knights who trained beside him, who believed in honor, who trusted in God's protection. Now, many of them are dead, burned, tortured, or lost. And for what? Because a king wanted more. Each night, when the dungeon grows still, you can almost hear the echo of footsteps, faint, measured, ghostly. It's said that the guards sometimes saw a dim light flicker around the Grand Master's cell, like a candle no one lit. A trick of the eyes, perhaps, or something else. One evening, a priest is brought to hear Jacques' confession. He leans close and listens as the old knight's voice trembles, not with fear, but with truth. We served the faith. We guarded the pilgrims, we kept our vows, and now we are betrayed. The priest leaves pale and shaken, unable to meet the eyes of the soldiers outside. Weeks pass, the trials continue. The Inquisition forces confession after confession, twisting pain into words. Many knights admit to impossible crimes, not because they are guilty, but because they can no longer endure. But Jacques stays silent. Who will speak for him? Who will listen to him?
In the dead of night, you see him again, seated against the wall, staring at the faint shimmer of moonlight through the slit in his cell. The light moves slowly, forming a small white cross on the stone floor. His lips move. You can't hear the words, but you feel them. It is a prayer not for himself, but for the souls of all who were lost that morning, that cursed Friday the 13th. Outside the prison, winter has settled over Paris. The Seine flows black and cold beneath the bridges.
The towers of Notre Dame rise above the fog like silent witnesses. And yet in the royal palace, King Philip feels uneasy. He dreams of fire, of a man bound to a stake, glaring at him through the flames, unafraid. He wakes drenched in sweat. There's a legend whispered by the guards that the Grand Master cursed the king in his sleep, that his spirit walked the corridors even before his death. No one knows for sure, but one thing is certain. No amount of gold or power could ease Philip's dread. The king orders that the trials be finished. The Templars will be judged once and for all, guilty no matter the truth. And so Jacques de Molay is dragged once more from his cell into the open air of the courtyard. The city has gathered. The priests read the charges aloud, and the old knight listens in silence. His hands tremble, not from fear, but from cold. His eyes scan the crowd, searching, perhaps, for a sign of mercy.
But there is none. He raises his head and speaks. His voice is steady, slow, and carries far beyond the square. God knows who has sinned, he says, and he will judge those who judge us wrongly. For a brief moment, even the wind seems to stop. Then the guards lead him back into the darkness, and the crowd scatters, murmuring prayers and doubts. As night falls again over Paris, you close your eyes and breathe in the cold air of history. You can feel it, that quiet, trembling moment before fate decides. The world is about to change again. The dawn will not be gentle. And far below the streets, Jacques de Molay waits, not for rescue, but for justice that only eternity can bring. The story of the Knights Templar is not over. Not yet.
The winter wind has not yet left Paris. It drifts through the narrow streets like a ghost, rattling the shutters of old houses, carrying the faint sound of bells from the cathedral towers. The city is quieter now, but under that silence, something is stirring. It's the morning of March 18th, 1314. You're standing on the banks of the Ile de la Cité, where the gray waters of the Seine curve gently past the old stone walls. A wooden platform has been built there, rough and tall, with bundles of dry wood piled high beneath it. Guards keep the crowds back, though thousands have gathered, nobles, peasants, monks, merchants, all drawn by the same dark curiosity. Today, they will burn the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar. Jacques de Molay is led through the crowd in chains. He's older now, his hair white, his back slightly bent, but his face is calm. There is no fear in his eyes, only quiet dignity, like a man walking towards something he already understands. Beside him walks another knight, Geoffroy de Chauny, a loyal friend who once fought beside him in the Holy Land. The two exchange a look, brief, but full of everything that cannot be said aloud: faith, brotherhood, and farewell.
The crowd murmurs. Some call them heretics. Others weep silently, ashamed of what their king has done. Even the executioner seems uneasy. As they reach the platform, the sun breaks through the clouds, a faint, watery light glinting off the river. Jacques looks toward the towers of Notre Dame, and for a moment he seems at peace. A priest steps forward, holding a parchment. He begins to read the final sentence, words of condemnation written by men who fear the truth. The crowd listens, restless. But when the priest finishes and turns to the Grand Master, Jacques speaks. His voice, though cracked with age, is strong enough to carry across the water. He says, "God knows who is in the wrong and who has sinned, and he will soon judge those who have condemned us wrongly." The air stills. Even the wind seems to stop moving. A few soldiers glance nervously at one another. Someone in the crowd whispers a prayer. Jacques is tied to the stake, the ropes digging into his arms. The executioner lowers the torch. The flames catch slowly at first, licking the dry wood, curling smoke into the sky. And then, with a sudden roar, the fire climbs higher.
You can hear the crackling, the hiss of sap bursting from the wood, the murmurs of the crowd turning to gasps. But above it all, above the roar of the flames, you hear the voice of Jacques de Molay once more. He shouts something, his words burning into the wind. "Pope Clement, King Philip, within a year I summon you to God's court. There you shall answer for your crimes against the temple." It is a curse, not of vengeance, but of justice. And as the fire consumes him, he does not scream. He looks up, toward the cathedral, toward the heavens, and his lips form a final prayer. The flames rise higher, smoke covers the island, drifting across the river like a gray veil. When it clears, only ashes remain, and a silence that no one dares to break. The people go home that night whispering that they have seen a saint die, not a heretic. Some claim that, in the final moments, a light appeared above his head, a white cross of fire that did not burn the wood beneath it. Others say they heard his words echo long after his body was gone. Weeks pass, and then the curse begins to work. In April 1314, just 1 month after the execution, Pope Clement V falls gravely ill. He dies before summer, his body so diseased that it cannot be buried for weeks. Before the year ends, King Philip IV, the man who ordered the arrests, who seized the gold, who watched the fire with cold eyes, dies suddenly after a hunting accident. His death is swift and brutal.
People begin to talk. The prophecy of Jacques de Molay has come true. The legend spreads like wildfire across Europe. Some say the king's line was cursed, and indeed, within a few generations, all of Philip's sons are dead, and his dynasty ends. France plunges into chaos. The curse of the Templars becomes part of history itself, a warning to kings who betray those who serve God. And yet, questions remain. What of the Templar treasure? What of the sacred relics they guarded? The Grail, the Shroud, the ancient scrolls of Solomon's Temple? Some believe the knights who escaped that fateful night carried it across the sea, to Scotland, or to secret chambers beneath the hills of Spain. Others say it was hidden within the temple itself, deep underground, waiting to be found. But none of that matters now. Not tonight. Because tonight, as you stand once more beside the river in your mind, the air smells faintly of smoke. The torches flicker on the stone bridges, and you can almost see the ghost of the Grand Master walking along the water's edge, his figure outlined in moonlight, calm, unbroken, eternal. He pauses, looks back, and then fades into the dark. The bells of Notre Dame toll once, twice, then fall silent.
And somewhere in that silence, the story of the Knights Templar finally finds its peace. Or perhaps it only begins again.
The smoke of the Grand Master's pyre fades into the gray sky of history. But the story of the Knights Templar does not end with the fire. It drifts like ash in the wind across oceans, kingdoms, and centuries. After that dark March day of 1314, the world begins to change. France is uneasy. The curse of Jacques de Molay haunts every echo of the royal court. The name Templar becomes forbidden, whispered only in secret, by candlelight, in monasteries and ships far from the eyes of kings. Yet even as the world moves on, their shadow remains. The old fortresses of the order, the stone towers that once flew the Red Cross, are silent now. The banners are gone, but inside, hidden within the cracks of the walls, lie faint traces of their story, carved symbols, coded letters, and in some places, secret chambers sealed by stone. You can almost imagine a knight kneeling there, hiding a chest of gold or a relic wrapped in linen, whispering a final vow before vanishing into the night. Those who escaped the arrests carried their secrets with them. Some fled to Portugal, where the king, sympathetic to their fate, created a new order called the Order of Christ. The same ships, once blessed by the Templars, would later sail under Portuguese banners into the unknown Atlantic, seeking new worlds.
And so, the spirit of the Templars quietly lived on, not as warriors, but as explorers. Their discipline, their maps, their symbols, all found new purpose on the waves. Others fled north to Scotland, where King Robert the Bruce had been excommunicated by the Pope. There they were welcomed. Legend says they fought beside the Scots at Bannockburn in 1314, the same year Jacques de Molay died, turning the tide of battle with their mysterious, ghostly cavalry. Some even claim that after the victory, they hid sacred relics beneath Rosslyn Chapel, its carvings filled with symbols of the Temple and the Grail. Whether those tales are truth or myth no longer matters, for both have become one. The centuries rolled forward, kingdoms rose and fell, but the name Templar never died. It became a whisper in the corridors of power, a symbol of loyalty, secrecy, and faith. Some say the Freemasons carried their legacy, their codes and rituals reborn in new form. Others believe the true Templars went underground, guarding ancient relics and wisdom even the Church could not destroy. You close your eyes and imagine them, silent watchers moving through history like shadows, a knight in white robes walking unseen among crusaders, a scholar copying sacred maps by candlelight, a sailor gazing at the stars with a compass shaped like a cross. They no longer wear armor, they no longer fight wars, but their idea of courage, discipline, and faith beyond fear still travels with mankind.
As centuries pass, artists, poets, and historians begin to tell their story again. Some paint them as heroes, protectors of the innocent, guardians of divine secrets. Others call them manipulators, keepers of forbidden knowledge, the invisible hand behind empires. Each version adds another layer to the myth, until the truth itself becomes sacred, untouchable, In quiet moments of night, you can still hear their story breathing. The fire crackles softly, the wind sighs against the window, and if you listen closely, you might catch the distant echo of hooves, the sound of riders crossing the earth, unseen but never gone. Their treasure? Perhaps it was never gold at all. Perhaps it was something deeper, a legacy of belief, of unity, of trust in something greater than themselves. The Templars built cathedrals that touched the heavens. They mapped stars to guide travelers. They carried knowledge between continents. And maybe, in their quiet way, they taught the world that strength without honor means nothing. You picture that cursed Friday again, October 13th, 1307. The dawn arrests, the locked doors, the sudden silence of the temple halls. And then you realize, though their order was destroyed, their ideals were not. The Red Cross still appears across time, in banners, in crests, even in hearts. The symbol endures, unburned. Somewhere, a new dawn begins. The light spills over old ruins, over seas, over ancient roads where knights once marched. And for a moment, the world feels peaceful again, as if the ghosts of the past have finally found rest. But then, you remember something. History never truly ends. Every legend leaves an echo. And perhaps, somewhere in the deep vaults of the earth, beneath forgotten castles or sleeping mountains, there are still sealed doors, carved with the Templar cross, waiting to be opened by hands that remember their vow. You take one last slow breath. The story has traveled far, from glory to ruin, from betrayal to myth, and yet it lingers, eternal, like the faint glow of a candle that never quite goes out. The wind outside your window stirs, gentle and cool. You imagine the Grand Master's voice, soft, calm, fading into the night. Nothing ends, only changes. The light we carried still burns in those who seek truth. The bells of Notre Dame ring once more, distant, deep and slow. Then the sound fades into stillness. And just like that, you drift into sleep, with the quiet knowledge that somewhere in history, the knights still ride. The chill of October sweeps through the streets of Paris in 1307, carrying with it whispers of fear and betrayal. The white mantles of the Knights Templar, once symbols of courage and faith, are now symbols of suspicion and political intrigue. Across Europe, rumors circulate of a secret order, wealthy beyond measure, whose influence rivals kings and popes alike. And now, under the orders of King Philip IV, the Templars face an unprecedented threat. In the dead of night, soldiers move silently through Paris, quietly arresting knights in their homes and fortresses. The red crosses on white cloaks are torn away, leaving men and women stripped of the insignia that once commanded respect. Some knights are shocked into disbelief, others resist fiercely, yet none can prevent the sweep. Hughes de Payen's vision of a protected, disciplined, and powerful order faces its darkest hour. Among those captured is Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master of the Order. He is taken from his chambers with a calm dignity, despite the weight of the accusations that hang over him. Heresy, blasphemy, corruption, charges that are fabricated, politically motivated, and designed to justify the seizure of the Order's wealth. Yet de Molay remains steadfast, understanding that the true power of the Templars lies not only in their treasures, but in their knowledge, discipline, and honor.
The arrests are swift, coordinated, and merciless. Across France, dozens of knights are imprisoned, tortured, or humiliated. Fortresses fall under royal control. Ledgers, letters, and treasure inventories are seized. The system the Templars had built, the network of letters of credit, cross-continental wealth, and protected relics, is threatened, yet parts of it remain hidden, safeguarded by centuries of foresight and secrecy. Even as their enemies celebrate, a sense of foreboding fills the air. The Templars' power is immense, but now it is invisible and unpredictable. Stories circulate of hidden treasure, secret passages, and coded letters that escape royal scrutiny. The Order's legacy, once entirely visible through their fortresses and wealth, begins to take on the qualities of legend, mysterious, untouchable, and timeless. In his prison cell, Jacques de Molay reflects on the betrayal. He recalls the founding of the Order, a small group of knights dedicated to protecting pilgrims, defending the Holy Land, and living by strict rules of honor and discipline. The same order, which had grown into a force both feared and admired, is now dismantled by human greed. Yet, de Molay understands that the spirit of the Templars is more enduring than kings, armies, or coins.
Outside the walls, the streets of Paris are alive with rumors. Commoners whisper of hidden treasures, secret curses, and the mysterious power of a group that once moved wealth across continents with precision and secrecy. The idea of a curse, a final act of defiance by an order betrayed, begins to capture the imagination of all who hear the tales. As news of the arrests spreads, so too do reports of unusual omens. The Seine is said to flow red at dawn. Fires break out mysteriously. Storms rage unexpectedly. Chroniclers record these events with awe and fear, noting that those who betrayed the Templars may have invited consequences beyond human comprehension. Whether coincidence, superstition, or divine warning, these events add to the growing legend of the Templar curse. Yet even amidst the fear and speculation, fragments of the Order's financial network continue to operate. Hidden vaults, undiscovered ledgers, and secret letters ensure that parts of the Templars' wealth survive. Couriers who remain loyal navigate treacherous routes, delivering gold and coded instructions to allies in distant lands. Though their power has been struck at the heart, the Templars' influence cannot be entirely extinguished. In the Holy Land, fortresses once under Templar control remain fortified and defended. Knights who escaped the initial arrests maintain vigilance, guarding relics, manuscripts, and treasures that might otherwise be lost. The Order's reach, though weakened, endures, and the mystery of its hidden wealth begins to grow in the public imagination.
And so, in the shadow of betrayal, the legend of the Templar curse begins. It is a story that blends history, rumor, and fear. An order of immense power, betrayed by a king, whose final acts of defiance may echo across the centuries. The night falls, and the candles in Paris flicker across the stone walls of prisons and fortresses. Inside, Jacques de Molay sits quietly, contemplating the fate of his order, the location of hidden treasures, and the trust placed in his knights. Outside, the city sleeps uneasily, aware that something far greater than politics, something both sacred and secret, has been set in motion. In this darkness, one can imagine the unseen treasures, gold, relics, ledgers, and coded letters, hidden in vaults,
tunnels, and castles across Europe and the Holy Land. Each piece carries the story of a disciplined, courageous order whose influence transcended wealth and power. Though betrayed, their legacy endures, waiting to be rediscovered, whispered about, and remembered. And so begins the tale of the Templar curse and their lost treasure, a story of betrayal, defiance, hidden wealth, and the enduring spirit of one of history's most enigmatic orders.
The streets of Paris are tense and silent, a city gripped by anticipation and fear. Inside the cold stone walls of royal prisons, knights of the Templar orders sit shackled, their white mantles now torn, their red crosses marred by soot and blood. The charges are grave: heresy, blasphemy, corruption, and secret rituals. The accusations are carefully orchestrated by King Philip IV, whose desire for the Templars' wealth and power drives him to manipulate the machinery of justice. Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master, is brought forward, his posture unwavering despite the weight of the accusations. Around him, knights face similar fates, some terrified, others defiant. They are questioned, pressured, and tortured, all in the name of exposing sins they did not commit. The king's aim is not truth, but justification, a legal smokescreen to seize the order's vast fortune and influence. The methods are brutal. Knights are confined to dark, damp cells, denied food, water, and warmth. Torture devices, racks, thumbscrews, and iron cages are employed to elicit confessions. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper in the corridor amplifies the tension. The prisoners know that survival depends on endurance, courage, and unwavering faith. Yet, even under unimaginable pain, many knights refuse to confess. Their discipline, honed over decades, allows them to resist. They remember the order's principles: honor, loyalty, and integrity. For them, confession would be betrayal, not just of the order, but of the pilgrims, kings, and popes who trusted them, and of the legacy they built with faith and sacrifice.
In the chambers of interrogation, clerics and judges press the knights relentlessly. They demand names, locations of hidden treasure, and secret knowledge. Some knights are broken, revealing minor details, but the most trusted hold fast. They understand that the Templars' wealth, stored in vaults and hidden tunnels across Europe and the Holy Land, must remain protected at all costs. Outside the prisons, the city watches. Crowds gather in whispered anticipation, eager to witness the downfall of the once powerful order. Chroniclers record the events with a mix of fear and fascination. Some see divine punishment, others see human ambition and cruelty. Rumors circulate of knights hiding treasure before capture, of secret passages in fortresses, and of letters coded so intricately that even torture cannot reveal their contents.
Even as the king consolidates power over Templar assets, he realizes the challenge is not merely physical, but intellectual. The order's treasures, both material and spiritual, are scattered and coded. Fortresses hold secret chambers, ledgers are encrypted, and letters of credit circulated ways known only to the knights. Philip may control the prisons, but he cannot immediately grasp the full scope of the order's hidden empire. The Templars' courage under duress becomes legend. Stories spread of knights refusing to betray their brethren, even when faced with flames or instruments of torture. Some are executed in public, their deaths a spectacle meant to inspire fear and submission. Others die quietly in dungeons, their loyalty unbroken to the very end. Yet the most remarkable event occurs during Jacques de Malay's final hours. Condemned to burn at the stake, he reportedly curses both King Philip IV and Pope Clement V. Witnesses recount that de Malay's voice rises above the crackling flames, his words a solemn pronouncement of divine justice. "Soon shall you join me before God, for your betrayal will not go unpunished." The curse, whether literal or legendary, cements the Templars' mystique, giving rise to tales that will echo through the centuries. In the aftermath, the Templar order is dismantled. Fortresses are seized, treasures confiscated, and knights scattered. Yet the legend of the trials, the courage under torture, and the supposed curse spreads far beyond France. Across Europe, whispers of hidden treasure and mystical revenge stir the imagination of nobles, merchants, and commoners alike.
Even kings and popes, despite their triumph, live with unease. Strange omens and untimely deaths seem to follow Philip and Clement, reinforcing the belief in a curse. The idea that the Templar spirit, their discipline, and their secrets survive becomes a powerful narrative, one that intertwines fear, reverence, and respect. Hidden treasures remain undiscovered. Fortresses, tunnels, and secret vaults continue to guard gold, jewels, and sacred relics. The complexity of the Order's systems ensures that even centuries later, parts of the Templars' wealth remain a mystery. Letters, ledgers, and coded communications preserve knowledge that may never be fully deciphered. By night, the wind sweeps through the prisons, and candles flicker in the halls of justice. The echo of chains, footsteps, and whispered prayers serves as a haunting reminder. Even in defeat, the Templars' influence endures. The trials and torture meant to destroy them instead elevate their legend, transforming their downfall into a story of courage, discipline, and mystery. As the city sleeps, the memory of the Templar trials lingers. The order may be broken, its leaders executed or imprisoned, yet the secrets of wealth, letters, and hidden treasure survive. And through it all, the story of courage in the face of unimaginable pressure, knights holding their faith, their honor, and their secrets, continues to inspire and terrify alike. The Templar curse, born in the fires of betrayal and trials, begins to take shape. A legacy woven of resilience, secrecy, and the promise that some treasures and truths can never be fully taken away.
Even as the prisons of Paris fill with the captured knights, the world beyond the city continues to whisper of hidden wealth and secret chambers. The Templars, aware of the fragility of power, had long anticipated such a day. Across Europe and the Holy Land, secret vaults, tunnels, and fortified strongholds house treasures, letters, and sacred relics, all protected by codes, traps, and the vigilance of those who remain loyal. In the countryside, a young knight named Armand de Villiers moves with stealth and purpose. He had foreseen the sweep in France and prepared contingencies. Using secret tunnels beneath Templar commanderies, he transports small chests of gold, encrypted letters, and sacred manuscripts away from confiscating hands. Each movement is precise, measured, and dangerous. Discovery means execution, but inaction means the Order's treasures would fall into royal hands. Armand reaches a secluded manor on the outskirts of Bordeaux, a location known only to a handful of knights. There, heavy doors conceal rooms lined with stone vaults, each chamber meticulously catalogued in coded ledgers. Gold glimmers in candlelight, coins and ingots stacked with precision. Precious manuscripts, relics, and letters of credit fill niches and alcoves, each piece a testament to the Templars' ingenuity and foresight. The secrecy of these caches is paramount. Traps, false walls, and misleading passages are common. Only those trained from years within the Order know the correct paths.
Armand pauses before entering one vault, feeling the weight of responsibility. A single misstep could destroy decades of planning, exposing treasures to theft or confiscation. Every coin, letter, and relic is a link to the Order's legacy, and he is its temporary guardian.
Elsewhere, in the Holy Land, knights execute similar measures. Fortresses in Acre, Jerusalem, and Tyre contain hidden chambers accessible only to the most trusted members. Gold and letters of credit move discreetly through subterranean passages, guarded by a combination of locks, codes, and secrecy. Pilgrims, unaware of the operation, may pass through courtyards without realizing the silent orchestration of wealth taking place beneath their feet. Couriers continue to operate under cover of darkness. Encrypted letters carry instructions to allies across continents, ensuring that resources reach safe havens. The Templars' network, though under siege, demonstrates remarkable resilience. Kings may seize public fortresses, popes may sanction arrests, yet the underlying system of secret vaults and loyal knights persists, invisible and inviolable.
Even within France, knights use clever disguises and false identities to move safely. Armand, dressed as a merchant, travels through Parisian streets carrying encrypted letters hidden within barrels and crates. The king's soldiers are unaware, distracted by the public spectacle of arrests and trials. Each successful delivery reinforces the resilience of the Order's network and the genius of its planning. The legend of hidden treasure grows with every secret movement. Rumors spread among the populace of tunnels beneath cathedrals, treasure buried in forests, and ships disappearing into the horizon with chests of gold. Whether truth or myth, these stories protect the Order by obscuring the reality of their hidden wealth. The king may seize fortresses and arrest knights, but the Templars' treasures continue to elude capture. Sacred relics, too, are carefully safeguarded. Crosses, manuscripts, and ceremonial artifacts are hidden in ways that ensure their survival, even if the physical order is dismantled. Knights understand that these objects are more than symbols of faith. They are tools of continuity, representing the spiritual and cultural power of the Templars. Armand de Villiers, like many others, understands the long-term stakes. The goal is not merely survival of treasure, but preservation of knowledge, tradition, and faith. By moving wealth and documents in secret, the knights maintain a thread of continuity that may one day allow the Order's legacy to influence the world, even after its apparent destruction.
The movement of treasure is not without danger. Soldiers loyal to the king, bandits, and opportunists seek to intercept shipments. Storms, treacherous roads, and human error threaten each operation. Yet the Templars' discipline, training, and foresight allow them to navigate these challenges. Every successful delivery reinforces the legend of the Order, while every failure serves as a reminder of the risks undertaken in defense of faith, wealth, and secrecy.
The city of Paris is tense in the wake of the Templars' arrests and trials. While the king celebrates his apparent victory, an invisible shadow begins to spread across the land. A shadow whispered about in hushed tones. The curse of Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Order. The memory of his final words, pronounced from the flames as he faced death, strikes fear into all who hear them. Soon shall you join me before God, for your betrayal will not go unpunished. Philip IV, confident in his triumph, initially dismisses the words as empty threats. Yet events unfold that he cannot easily explain.
Illness sweeps through his court. Advisors and close allies die unexpectedly. Storms ravage fields and cities, causing famine and destruction. Chroniclers, both loyal and impartial, begin to record these events with growing unease. People whisper that the king has provoked forces beyond human understanding. Across Europe, the story of the Templar curse spreads like wildfire. In England, Italy, and the Holy Land, nobles and merchants alike recount tales of the knight's final defiance. Even those who never met the Templars feel the weight of the legend. It is said that anyone who betrayed or harmed the order faces misfortune, sudden death, or calamity. The fear of divine retribution becomes almost palpable, influencing political decisions and personal behavior.
In Rome, Pope Clement V feels the weight of the curse. Though he sanctioned the trials, supported Philip IV, and oversaw the dissolution of the order, he cannot escape the sense of impending doom. Health falters, advisors perish, even the papal treasury suffers unexpected losses. The idea of divine vengeance, once dismissed, now haunts the corridors of the Vatican. Meanwhile, whispers circulate that some Templar knights survived the arrests and imprisonment. Hidden in remote fortresses, monasteries, and tunnels, they quietly maintain the order's legacy, ensuring that treasures, relics, and coded ledgers remain protected. These survivors, though few in number, continue to safeguard secrets that kings and popes cannot touch, amplifying the aura of the curse. In France, Philip IV faces the ultimate irony. Despite seizing the Templars' wealth and power, misfortune follows him relentlessly. Chroniclers later note that he dies suddenly, within a year of Demolay's execution, his health deteriorated by both stress and illness. Observers interpret this as the fulfillment of the Grand Master's curse. Legends claim that his death was accompanied by strange omens, a storm tearing through Paris, thunder shaking the city, and a fire burning in the palace. The curse extends beyond kings and popes. Nobles who participated in the Templars' persecution reportedly face untimely deaths, financial ruin, or political downfall. Merchants who tried to claim Templar treasure without caution are said to encounter sudden misfortune. The stories create an atmosphere of fear, reinforcing the power and influence of a group that no longer wields visible authority.
Even centuries later, historians and storytellers recount the Templar curse with fascination. They describe mysterious deaths, unexplained disasters, and the seemingly prophetic warnings of Jacques de Molay. While some interpret these events as coincidence, the narratives persist, giving the order a mystical dimension that elevates their legacy from historical to legendary. The fear of the curse also serves a practical purpose. It protects the hidden treasures of the order. Rumors of divine vengeance discourage would-be treasure hunters from digging too deeply, discouraging theft and looting. Vaults remain undisturbed, letters unbroken, and sacred relics preserved. The legend becomes a shield, blending superstition with the strategic foresight of the Templars. In distant lands, pilgrims and merchants recount the stories. Tales of knights who faced torture without betrayal, of treasures hidden beyond reach, and of a curse that punishes the greedy circulate in marketplaces, monasteries, and along pilgrimage routes. The order's legend spreads, influencing the perceptions of kings, commoners, and scholars alike. The Templar curse becomes a narrative of resilience and justice. Though betrayed, imprisoned, and executed, the order's final acts ensure that power, knowledge, and wealth cannot be entirely seized. The knight's foresight, combined with the mystique of divine vengeance, transforms their downfall into a story of enduring influence.
By night, in Paris and beyond, the wind carries whispers of fear and respect. Candles flicker across the walls of abandoned fortresses and hidden vaults. Somewhere, a knight guards a chest of gold or a coded ledger, invisible to the king and immune to the trials of men. The Templars' treasures endure, as does the memory of their final warning, the curse that reminds the world that some powers, when betrayed, cannot be controlled. And so, the Templar curse spreads. It is a story of betrayal, fear, and resilience, of kings and popes haunted by their actions, of treasures that remain hidden and secrets that survive centuries. It is a tale that blends history with legend, reminding all who hear it that the Knights Templar, though fallen, wield a power that transcends the limits of life and death.
Even as the dust settles on Parisian streets and Templar fortresses fall under royal control, the legend of the Order's hidden wealth refuses to fade. Across Europe, stories circulate of treasure beyond imagination, chests of gold, silver, and jewels, manuscripts detailing financial systems, sacred relics, and perhaps even objects of mystical power. The Templars' downfall only amplifies the allure of what remains unseen. Merchants, nobles, and would-be adventurers speculate endlessly. In monasteries, taverns, and marketplaces, tales are shared of tunnels beneath abbeys, secret compartments in castles, and ships that vanished at sea carrying untold riches. Some whisper that the treasure was relocated before the arrests, hidden in forests, mountains, or islands far from the prying eyes of kings. Others claim that the Order had secret allies who ensured that much of the wealth survived. Among these tales is the most persistent legend that the Templars safeguarded the Holy Grail. Chroniclers and storytellers describe a sacred chalice, a relic of immense power, hidden away to protect it from corruption and greed. Though proof is elusive, the legend persists, intertwined with the mystery of the Order's vanished coffers and secret letters. To many, it is the ultimate prize, a symbol of divine favor and worldly authority combined.
In addition to material wealth, the Templars' influence survives in more subtle ways. Their financial innovations, letters of credit, banking methods, and secure transfer systems live on in the structures of European commerce. Scholars who study medieval banking recognize that many modern practices trace back to Templar ingenuity. Thus, even if the physical treasure remains lost, the intellectual and systemic wealth of the Order endures. Legends also claim that some Templar treasure was moved to Scotland, Ireland, or even the New World centuries later. Secret maps, coded letters, and hidden instructions allegedly guide descendants or loyal knights in preserving and relocating wealth. Each story is layered with mystery, speculation, and imagination, blurring the line between history and folklore. The Templar curse adds a chilling dimension to these legends. Many believe that attempting to claim the treasure without respect or knowledge invites misfortune. Tales circulate of adventurers struck by disease, misadventure, or sudden financial ruin after searching too aggressively. These stories serve both as caution and as a shield, ensuring that the treasure remains hidden from those unworthy of its secrets. Some historians argue that the greatest treasure was not gold, but knowledge. The ledgers, letters, and manuscripts that detailed financial systems, cross-continental trade, and cryptography. These hidden texts ensured that the Templars' influence survived, providing a foundation for future banking and commerce. To the Order, such intellectual wealth was as valuable, if not more so, than silver and gold.
Even today,
the Templar treasure continues to captivate imagination. Books, films, and documentaries explore theories about hidden vaults beneath cathedrals, secret islands, or ancient castles. Enthusiasts search archives for coded letters and study architectural anomalies for clues. Each discovery, real or imagined, reinforces the enduring fascination with a group that combined martial discipline, spiritual devotion, and financial genius. The mystery of the lost treasure becomes a story of both history and legend, where fact and myth intertwine. Kings, popes, and armies may have sought to control the Templars, but the invisible legacy of hidden wealth, sacred relics, and secret knowledge evades even the most determined pursuers. The order, though dismantled, continues to hold sway over imaginations worldwide. Relics, manuscripts, and ledgers that survive in private collections or obscure archives are treated with reverence. Scholars and historians recognize that these fragments offer a glimpse into a world of discipline, secrecy, and immense ingenuity. The Templars' treasure, whether physical or intellectual, represents a pinnacle of medieval organization and foresight, a legacy far greater than mere wealth. Stories of treasure hunters who vanish mysteriously, of cryptic codes and letters, and of hidden chambers beneath ancient fortresses all reinforce the aura of the order. The Templar curse, combined with centuries of secrecy, ensures that their wealth remains enigmatic. For those who respect the order's principles, these legends inspire wonder and respect. But the greedy and reckless, they serve as warning. In quiet monasteries, beneath cathedral floors, and in the ruins of Templar fortresses, the echoes of hidden treasure persist. Each coin, each letter, each sacred relic carries with it a fragment of the order's identity, discipline, faith, and ingenuity. Though centuries have passed, the allure of the lost treasure continues to draw the curious, the bold, and the faithful alike. And so, the Templars' wealth lives on, partly in gold, partly in knowledge, and largely in legend. The mythos of hidden riches, sacred relics, and coded messages ensures that the Order's story transcends time, geography, and even death. The Templar treasure is more than material wealth. It is a symbol of an enduring, mysterious legacy that continues to captivate hearts and minds.
The flames that consumed Jacques de Molay may have ended the life of the last Grand Master, but they could not extinguish the spirit of the Knights Templar. Even centuries after their apparent fall, the Order's influence endures, quietly shaping history through wealth, knowledge, and legend. Across Europe, in the whispers of scholars, clergy, and commoners, the memory of the Templars persists as a testament to courage, discipline, and ingenuity. The immediate aftermath of the Order's dissolution is chaotic. Fortresses are seized, treasures are confiscated, and knights scatter to the winds. Some seek refuge in distant lands, carrying with them fragments of the Order's knowledge and wealth. Others integrate into monastic orders or noble households, serving as advisors, bankers, or warriors in secret. Through these dispersed channels, the Templars' legacy continues to ripple across Europe and beyond. Even the Templars' financial genius survives. The network of letters of credit, secure transfers, and innovative banking methods they pioneered lays the foundation for modern finance. Merchants, kings, and even popes adopt and adapt the systems once controlled by the knights, ensuring that the Order's influence remains deeply embedded in the world's economic structures. What was once a secret network becomes the blueprint for centuries of commerce.
Legends of hidden treasure and the Templar curse continue to grow.
captivating imaginations across generations. Authors, historians, and adventurers recount stories of secret vaults, lost relics, and sacred objects beyond price. The Holy Grail, ancient manuscripts, and priceless coins all become part of the mystique, intertwining history with myth. Even today, explorers and scholars are drawn to the mystery, inspired by a legacy of cunning, secrecy, and unwavering discipline. In architecture, remnants of Templar fortresses, chapels, and commanderies stand as silent witnesses to their era. The design of these structures reflects a dual purpose: defense and secrecy. Hidden chambers, crypts, and passageways reveal an intelligence and foresight that confound modern architects. Visitors to these ancient buildings feel the weight of history, the echo of steps taken by knights who once moved silently through these halls. The Order's spiritual legacy is equally enduring. The Templars were not merely warriors or financiers, they were monks devoted to a sacred mission. Their vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, combined with martial discipline, exemplify a fusion of faith and action that few orders have achieved. Even after the Order's suppression, its ideals influence subsequent monastic and knightly organizations, shaping codes of honor, ethical conduct, and military discipline. Stories of courage during torture and betrayal continue to inspire. The knights' refusal to betray their principles under pressure, even in the face of execution, becomes a symbol of steadfastness and integrity. Historians and storytellers highlight these acts as examples of moral fortitude, ensuring that the Templars' influence transcends material wealth and physical power. Their true treasure, it seems, is the enduring example of honor and resilience.
Across continents, the Order's influence is subtle yet profound. The codes they developed for communication and finance inform later secret societies and banking practices. Manuscripts preserved in hidden libraries reveal encryption techniques, accounting methods, and logistical strategies that continue to fascinate scholars. The Templars' combination of spiritual devotion, financial innovation, and military discipline creates a blueprint for success that resonates long after their dissolution. Cultural fascination with the Templars remains strong. Artists, writers, and filmmakers draw inspiration from their legend, blending fact and myth to create stories that capture imagination worldwide. The mystique of the lost treasure, the cursed kings, and the secret knowledge elevates the Templars from historical figures to icons of adventure, mystery, and timeless intrigue. Even in modern times, historians uncover fragments of the Order's influence. Letters hidden in archives, architectural clues, and financial documents provide insight into a network that once spanned continents. Each discovery sheds light on the Knights' intelligence, foresight, and dedication, reinforcing the idea that the Templars were far more than soldiers. They were architects of systems, protectors of pilgrims, and guardians of sacred wealth. The Templar curse, the hidden treasure, and the legends of lost relics continue to captivate explorers and scholars alike. They serve as a reminder that true influence is not always measured in armies or kingdoms, but in ideas, ingenuity, and the ability to inspire generations. The Knights Templar, those struck down by betrayal and fire, achieved a form of immortality through their enduring legacy.